it took the Indianapolis Colts exactly 2 seconds to turn in the draft card.
You know when an NFL coach marches down the sideline and stands behind the ref and it's like, I'm going to tell you when I'm going to call a timeout. I'm going to tell you when. It's the clock. Ballard was behind Roger Goodell and was like, as soon as this pick comes in at 13, I'm fucking drafting Tyler Warren so fast. You better run to that. You better get that goddamn bike out and fucking pedal out on that stage and say Tyler Warren right now.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast, presented by Arena, the all-in-one sports super app that combines DFS, sports news, and a social media element as well. You can download it right now on the App Store, Arena Sports. I'm Trevor Sikkema, that is Connor Rogers, joining you guys for the annual draft grade episode after the 2025 NFL Draft. Connor, I know it's been a long weekend for you, my friend. How are things? How are you feeling? Have you caught up on sleep now? How are we doing?
No. I feel
Just
good.
straight to it. Not even like, yeah, man, what you doing? No.
Right. I feel great, but no, I haven't really slept much. We'll get there eventually. And I know it was the same for you, which it's so much fun draft weekend. It's funny, after every show, you know, people are like, oh, how do you do it? How are you still alive? And like, you just feed off of adrenaline. It's what you've been waiting
100%.
for all year.
Yes.
Then you wake, I don't know about you, Sunday morning for me is like the first Hangover movie where they all wake up and nobody, like, you're frozen in time.
And there's a tiger in your bathroom?
Yeah, basically.
You got to go to Mike Tyson's house?
Pretty much. You're trying to retrace your steps. I'm not like somebody that sleeps in anymore at this stage in my life, and that is the one time where my body could just go. And I know you do the recap show on Sunday. I don't have anything until the Jets show, which is an evening show in the city on Sunday night. So Sunday morning's the one time I could sleep a little bit. But feeling good. Really, really fun week. Thanks to everybody that was rocking with us late Thursday night, or if you got to watch the PFF shows with Trevor, the NBC and Bleacher Report content that I got to do as well. We really appreciate that. How are you? Are we live and well? You look spry.
No, we're
never
doing
looked
good.
better. You got your first goal in 1,000 games for the Colorado Avalanche.
This is true. Yeah, and you know what sucks is I bet on Landeskog to be the first goal scorer of that game, and he happened to score, but it wasn't the first one. So that's me.
Second, right?
So it's not even like
okay.
But it was their first home game since he had been back, and I was like, you know what? Since everybody said that he looked like me, it's his first game back. It's a feel-good story. The universe is here. First goal scorer. But I got greedy. I should have gone with anytime goal.
Did you see the crowd after the goal? People were making out, chugging beers. It was nuts. I'm serious. Like I was like, wow. Like, that is really a city that is behind the return of Gabriel Landeskog. It was awesome.
Look, it's a team that can win a cup. Anytime that's the case,
yeah.
The vibes are always high.
Yeah, it couldn't be me. Don't know what that's like. Onward.
Oh, brother. Yeah, it's tough. I got a flight tonight, and the Lightning play while I'm on the flight. So hopefully Air Marshal doesn't, lock me in the bathroom because I'm just being pissy about how the Lightning are doing if they're losing. But we'll see if I survive to the next NFLSE episode. Like Connor said, thank you guys so much for taking in all of our content, whether it was, like I said, the live shows at PFF or Connor stuff with NBC or Bleacher Report or even like the NFLSE stuff. Everybody who joined us after the midnight hour, we said we were going to go live at midnight. It was once again 1 a.m.
Of course. Never fails.
Y'all are the best for that. That was so much fun getting to rock with you guys and recap that night one of the NFL draft. But this is another yearly tradition that we love. It's a draft grades episode. We're going to talk about every single player, not super detail every single player, but we're going to talk about every single draft haul for all of these teams, and we're going to give you our individual draft grades. I've got a draft grade. Connor's got a draft grade. We're going to give you as much context as possible. And if you're watching this one on YouTube, this one's going to have some extra information for you. It's going to have not only where players were picked, but also where they were on Connor and I's big boards to give you a little bit of extra context as we talk about good or bad grades. The way that I have this sheet ordered is alphabetically, but by team. So normally we don't get that. We're not doing it by division.
Keep everyone on their toes.
Mainly because they didn't categorize it right. And we're starting off with kind of a doozy here. We got the San Francisco 49ers up first here, alphabetically, the number 4 because it's a number. I know. We got to do it. We got to get it out of the way.
I love this show because, one, it is obviously maybe the most viewed show of the year. And some people really do love you after this show. I hate this show because some people really, really do hate you after this show. But, I mean, that's the nature of the job. If you want to write in the comments, like, screw you. I'll never watch again. We're built for it. It's okay. It's just funny that, we're starting with the Niners. All right.
All right, so the 49ers, I'll recap every draft really quick. Michael Williams in the first round, Alfred Collins in the second, Nick Martin in the third, Upton Stout in the third, C.J. West in the fourth, Jordan Watkins in the fourth as well, Jordan James in the fifth, Marcus Siegel in the fifth, and then Curtis Rourke, Connor Colby, Junior Bergen, and in the seventh there to round things out. Connor, I gave this draft a D-.
Woo, buddy.
This is my lowest. This is my lowest graded draft of any team. I promise you. I promise you, I didn't do this on purpose.
Hope you're hungry for nothing. I can't get over it. Well done.
Yeah.
Kudos to you.
D-, man. Look. Michael Williams was overdrafted versus where he was on my board by 27 spots.
Right.
I thought the Alfred Collins pick was excellent. I love Alfred Collins.
Yeah.
Nick Martin and Upton Stout were overdrafted by about 100 spots each. Nick Martin was overdrafted by 200 spots for me. CJ West, I love, but Jordan Watkins, I don't love. Again, like another guy who was overdrafted there. This is also a team that, even beyond them betting on way outliers at really high picks when I felt like that was totally unnecessary in Nick Martin and Upton Stout, they didn't draft a single offensive lineman until the seventh round. And, you draft Jordan James in the fifth, and I think that Jordan James is actually like one of their fine draft picks.
Same.
But you could have drafted some sort of offensive lineman that was available there in the fifth. So they didn't address the offensive line at all. Major bets at outliers, way higher than I thought they should have gone in the draft. And then at the very top, Michael Williams. I think he's a fine player. I think he's a solid player. He makes them better in run defense. But at number 11 overall over other players that were on my board, I think that was a little bit of a reach even to start this draft. So this is my lowest graded draft here with a D- for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, they were a C- for me, and I think we see it exactly the same. Like maybe I'm just being a softy here. I think we see it exactly the same. I'm going by my grades that I wrote up and published already for NBCSports.com, and they were tied for my lowest grade. It's just that you pretty much covered it. Michael, I was lower on them where they took him. There was better pass rushers available, and this is a place where he should develop because of the coaches they have that develop pass rushers. But it's the 11th overall pick in the draft, and far from the most egregious they made. I want to make that clear. We eye to eye on Alfred Collins. This is right around where Alfred Collins should go. It's like the Niners went to the draft and said, we will never embarrass ourselves with our run defense ever again. And then they lost sight of everything else. Almost.
They gave Bob Sala the keys, as Dalton Washington was saying all weekend.
That's a scary place to be sometimes. Like, you know what I'm hung up on the Nick Martin pick is I had him 220 on the big board. They took him 75th. And the thing where I'm hung up on is Sala had his best track record in the NFL as linebackers. I mean, the Jets claimed Quincy Williams off waivers and he became an All-Pro. He was part of Jacksonville, I think, when they took Miles Jack, who his career started out well. Obviously Fred Warner is a big one to name. He has a good track record with linebackers. I will still be surprised if this one lives up to the draft slot compared to where they took him. Yeah, he was a reach. Stout was a reach. Watkins was a reach. There was a ton of better receivers on the board in round 4 where they took Watkins. I like Jordan James. I like CJ West. And even the bigger picture is it's not just always about the players. I don't know how. I was looking at it like they're going to take a pass rusher at 11, and then they'll get developmental offensive linemen after that, like they did with Dominic Pooney, and it'll probably work because they have the coaching and infrastructure to do it.
Right.
And they just didn't. Like Connor Colby in the 7th round is not the solution to their problems on the offensive line, where I'm a little worried about Brock Purdy now going into this season. And then Junior Bergen at the end of the 7th was taking a returner, one of the best returners, obviously, at the FCS level. So I'm with you, Trevor. They had a lot of assets and a lot of opportunities to hit every single need and get really good players at every single need. And it felt like they reached and tried to overcorrect in just one area over and over again.
Yeah, there's just no doubt about it. They're going to be better in run defense, but that doesn't make the bets they made and when they made them better on how I wish they would have approached the draft. I do not love it. And Nick Martin and Upton Stout, I mean, feisty football players, man, but both of those guys below 10th percentile, if not below the 5th percentile in height, weight, and length.
Yeah,
you just took 2 guys in the 3rd round who their build does not really exist in the league. So unless you think these guys are the outliers of all outliers, some of the best outliers that we're going to find in the class, and clearly they do. They drafted them there, but just a all over the place class.
It's the value, right? Like you took two massive outliers with two top 100 picks.
Yep.
You didn't take them in the 4th, 5th, 6th.
Right.
Those are picks that have to play football for you.
I have to think that they could have picked both of those guys in the 4th, if not maybe even the 5th round with some.
I thought the 5th or 6th round for each of them.
Yeah.
And the Niners, unfortunately, while they do a lot of good things at times, there's a lot of draft history with them lighting picks on fire in the middle rounds. And I thought they lit too many picks on fire.
Well, if you thought we were going to be soft on our draft grades, obviously you know that that's not the case now. We came out and set the tone. But I promise we'll be a little bit more hopeful as your friendly neighborhood hope dealers here for most of the rest of these. Yeah.
Handing out hopium on the street corner.
Dishing out that hot, fresh hopium. The Chicago Bears are next. Colson Loveland in the 1st round. Luther Burden in the 2nd. My Lord. Ozzie Trapillo in the 2nd. Shamar Stewart in the 2nd as well. 3 second-round picks. Ruben Hippolyte, the linebacker from Maryland, in the 4th. Zoff Frazier in the 5th. Luke Newman in the 6th. And then your boy, Kyle Monungai.
Oh, they won the draft in the 7th round.
In the 7th round there. Connor, I gave them an A-. What did you give the Bears?
B+. Yep. Yeah, I looked at this draft and they just understood exactly what they wanted on offense. The most fascinating pick to me might be, I loved the reps I saw from Shamar Turner on the edge in 2023. They played him a lot more inside this year. Dennis Allen loves those big ends.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have a plan for Shamar Turner that plays to his strengths, where I thought the 23 tape was better, where I was really excited about Shamar Turner at 62. I had him at 64, so it was right where I thought he'd go, but I'm like, this is a landing spot that might really, really pop off for them. I know you were really high on Burden. I'll have you talk about him. Loveland, it's so easy to kind of envision him in this scheme from a movement and route skills and blocking on the move kind of skills. Zay Frazier is just loaded up with traits and tools to develop as a 3rd string, 2nd string kind of corner. Monungai I had at 110. They took him at 233. I think he's going to be the David Montgomery of this offense in a year or so. I really believe in the kid that much. So I liked just about everything the Bears did. I thought Hippolyte was just a workout star. He ran one of the most insane 40s for a 236-pound linebacker. You'll see.
Right. Him and Zoff Frazier were just like athletic bets, one right after the other.
RAS gods.
Yes.
Now, I think with Frazier, he's somebody that I see the tools translate to the field, where Hippolyte, that's still a work in progress. But this was and Luke Newman was an RAS god as well, a really athletic guard. This was a strong draft for the Bears. And Turner's the one I'm probably most excited to see because of the plan.
Ben Lindsay, who has worked at PFF a long time, and he's been doing some betting stuff for us. He took a long shot bet and said for Shamar Stewart to be the the Bears pick at number 10, just because he was an RAS god. Relative athletic score, by the way, is what that stands for. It basically means, how athletic you are at a bigger size means even more. It's like weight adjusted athleticism, and so that means a lot. And he used Shamar Stewart as a long shot bet at number 10 because he said that research has shown since 2019 no general manager has drafted more towards RAS athletes than Ryan Poles. And so it makes sense that through these first 4 picks that they had, they went true best player available. Didn't matter. We were picking them, and they feel like they have done the work on their roster to where they have that luxury to be able to do that. And it's been cool. I think that Burden forms one of the best wide receiver trios in the NFL. I mean, the potential of this group, along with Colson Loveland and Cole Kmet, is just unbelievable. You tie in what they did along the interior offensive line, and even drafting Ozzie Trapillo, and it's basically like, man, Caleb Williams ain't no excuses whether or not he's an NFL quarterback. None. We will figure it out. I don't want to say like week 1 of this year, but
preseason.
Caleb Williams, yeah.
You better light it up, pal.
1 incompletion, and he's a bum.
Yep.
1 incompletion. No, it's you. If you're a fan, you dream of this. If you're a general manager, you dream of this. Putting your quarterback in a situation where you can fully confidently say that our franchise quarterback that we drafted at number 1 overall has no excuse to prove whether or not he is a number 1 overall type of a quarterback. And that's what the Chicago Bears have done here. The Ozzie Trapillo pick, interesting. The reason why I gave this like an A- instead of a straight A, Ozzie Trapillo, I really like as a player. doesn't exactly lean into like that zone blocking scheme that I felt like they were doing with the additions they made along the interior offensive line. He's more of a between the tackles type of a blocker, but I still think he's a good player. And then also just not taking a running back until the 7th round. I feel like they could have taken one a little bit earlier, but they probably believe that they can get running back elsewhere as well. The Cincinnati Bengals are next. Shamar Stewart. This is where Shamar Stewart ended up going at number 17 overall. Demetrius Knight in the 2nd round. Dylan Fairchild in the 3rd. Barrett Carter in the 4th. Jalen Rivers in the 5th. And then Taj Brooks in the 6th. A little bit of a shorter class here, Connor. I gave the Cincinnati Bengals a B- in this draft. What did you give them?
I gave them a B. Rock solid. When you look at this draft, not a ton of flash, and I think that's more so what the Bengals kind of needed. Of course, Shamar, because of his athleticism. But I was a little surprised they didn't come out of this draft with a big defensive tackle from this class for the middle of their defense. But man, they did a lot of good things. Obviously, Shamar's size and speed, if they could figure out the contract situation with Trey Hendrickson, Shamar's disruption ability is going to feed a lot of sacks to Trey's finishing ability. You look at Demetrius Knight, a true middle linebacker with instincts, where Barrett Carter is kind of that weak side linebacker with speed, special teams, maybe even more of a sub-package kind of linebacker. And then I like the 2 swings on the offensive line. I think Fairchild has more upside than Rivers, but I think Rivers is a more complete player right now that could be your bat. Their tackles are hurt a lot, and they like these big, powerful knockback tackles. That's what Jalen Rivers was at Miami. They got him at 153. I had him at 86, so that was the value pick of the draft for them. I was a fan of this player. I thought the Bengals with limited capital did just a solid job all around.
Yeah, looking at your rankings versus where they picked these guys, I mean, you've got a handful of value picks for a lot of them. Knight and Fairchild, pretty much where you had them on
Knight,
your board.
a little reach.
Yeah, Knight's a little bit higher. You're right. I was a little bit higher on Knight. I'm seeing my ranking for him there now. But Stewart, you had him ranked 17. He goes 17th overall. Carter, Rivers, you mentioned them getting some good value there.
Yeah, right there.
I'm a little bit lower on Fairchild and just was a little bit lower on Stewart overall. I can certainly see it working. That's why I'm not going to be too harsh on this draft. I think it is a solid draft. I like Demetrius Knight. I like that bet there. The biggest surprise for me in this draft is that new defensive coordinator Al Golden didn't get a single Notre Dame player. He didn't pick, a Ben Morrison. Not that I think that they were going to pick Ben Morrison, but like Ben Morrison,
Kaiser,
Riley Mills, Jack Kaiser, Xavier Watts. Like I thought he'd get somebody along there. I saw that they signed Howard Cross as an undrafted free agent, which, by the way, if you guys want to shout out some of your team's undrafted free agents, do so in the comments. If you say, like, hey, you could add this guy to the draft haul. Obviously, we're just doing draft grades. But if there's some notable undrafted free agents, fire it off in the chat and or in the comments section, and we'll be able to read and go back and forth on some undrafted free agents that were drafted as well. So I think it was a solid draft. You're hoping that Shamar Stewart is going to develop into a much better pass rusher than he was in college, but it's a good bet to make. And I think that this was a fine draft from the Cincinnati Bengals. The Buffalo Bills are the next team here. Maxwell Hairston in the 1st round. TJ Sanders, a.k.a. Bull Rush McIntyre, didn't even need to change the name. The NFL still drafted him top 50 anyways. I think it is funny that I had him 54th, you had him 68th. NFL actually drafts him 41st.
We're the only people that like him.
And then the NFL likes him more.
And they traded up for him.
Oh, what a feel-good story that was for the addicts in the NFL SC family. Go with Landon Jackson in the 3rd, Deion Walker in the 4th, Jordan Hancock in the 5th, Jackson Hawes in the 5th, Dorian Strong in the 6th, Chase Lunt in the 6th, and then Caden Prather in the 7th. For the Buffalo Bills, I gave them a solid B, and I think that they got a B because I would have preferred Benjamin Morrison, Trey Amos, Will Johnson, who were still on the board when they picked Maxwell Hairston. Obviously, this is the guy that they wanted instead, but I would have preferred those guys. I think the rest of them are really solid players, really help out the team. Deion Walker, it's fine. Like, it's fine. If he would have been picked in the 2nd or 3rd rounds, I would have really disliked it. 4th round is fine. It's not my favorite, but it's fine. Overall, though, I think the Bills got a lot of really talented players and some names that we have said a lot on this show over the last year. So I gave him a B. What'd you have him?
I gave him a C+. Now, It's heavily weighted because of the 1st round pick. Because after that, they took guys either right around where I had them or got a little value. Mm-hmm. And it was needs. Like, I really like TJ Sanders in this front. I wish they got a little bit more of a run plugger after Sanders. I don't think Deion Walker is that. I didn't think he was very good against the run this year because of his lack of leverage.
Yep.
So that was my one criticism, that they still, to me, need a two-gapping run stuffer in this front. But Sanders is going to be a, pass rush presence. Obviously, I like that pick a lot. I had Landon Jackson 74th. They got him 72nd. He's a bigger...
I was just going to say, I think that Landon Jackson is basically like a better version of what they wanted A.J. Epinesa to be.
That's what I thought of right away. He could rush more.
Yes.
Hawes, blocking tight end.
Beef.
Yep, beef. Dorian Strong was a nice pick in round 6. I think he's a good cover player. I can't sit here and give the Bills a great grade when Hairston was my 10th ranked corner. And
you're right.
That's the hard part for me. I had him 84th. They took him 30th. Hey, they really like the player. Maybe he's going to do some great things for them. There was corners in this class that I liked better. I've been very honest about that. I typically do not like corners that are that slender. I think the NFL is a very, very physical league on the outside, and maybe he can be an outlier in that regard because of his ball skills and speed. But they did a lot of good things depth-wise. Like Chase Lunt is their type of tackle to be a backup for Spencer Brown. Dorian Strong, I wouldn't be, maybe this is my hottest take I could have. I wouldn't be floored if they got to camp and Strong looks close to Maxwell Hairston. I didn't have him ranked the same, but he doesn't look out of his league entirely. But for the Bills, I gave him a C+. It was a depth draft for me, besides Bull Rush, who's going to be a disruptor for them out of the gate.
I like their outside of Hairston, who it was fine. He was picked a little bit earlier. And again, there were other players that I wish they would have picked there that I had ranked higher at the cornerback position. But like the depth guys, I like Jordan Hancock and Dorian Strong, to be honest with you. I think that Hancock fits their
that's a good point.
Hybrid like slot safety role.
I thought he was a safety that had to play corner.
Yeah, and I think that he does his best work in the slot.
Right.
But that's also where he's played the most. So maybe they'll play him a little bit better in safety sets. When you look at the safety grades, I think the Buffalo Bills were bottom 5 in the NFL in total coverage grade from their safety unit last year. So it needed to be better overall, and I like adding those guys. And then Caden Prather, there were times when I like Caden Prather better than Ty Felton.
Dude,
honestly.
2023, it wasn't close. I don't know what happened this year.
I think Bills fans might say like, oh man, didn't address wide receiver to the 7th. It's a good wide receiver to get in the 7th. Not going to lie. Denver Broncos, next team here. Jahdae Barron in the first round. R.J. Harvey in the second. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Pat Bryant in the third. Savion Jones in the third as well. Quay Robinson in the fourth. Jeremy Crawshaw in the sixth. And Caleb Lohner in the seventh. Was he their last pick? I thought they had one more.
That's all I had.
One more. Oh, is that it?
Did you say Crawshaw?
Yeah. Okay. So Lohner was the last one. For
Yep.
some reason, I'm thinking they had another one. Okay. Denver Broncos. What did I give them? I give them a B+ as a draft grade. What'd you give them, Connor?
A B-.
Okay. All right. Talk about it.
I'm sure what swung that is you've been pretty high on Harvey for a long time.
Damn right, baby.
And Sean Payton and you are currently arm in arm right now saying yes.
Jahdae Barron, Bo Nix, R.J. Harvey, Audric Estime. We're out here, baby.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Me and you are freelance scouting for the Denver Broncos organization.
I was in the Texans war room, and you were in the Broncos war room. We were just pressing all of the buttons all night. Barron, this was just a perfect fit on a loaded defense. Loaded defense. And this was the range I liked Barron. I had him 22nd. They took him 20th. He's just going to be able to handle so many different roles for them and not just have to be an outside corner. This is a good offense for Harvey because they'll know how to get him in space. Pat Bryant is not going to run away from a lot of people, but he catches everything and blocks. Savion Jones might be my favorite pick. He's just a jumbo-sized edge. And I mean, of course, Jahdae Barron, in my opinion, is the best pick, but he's the first rounder. Savion Jones is this jumbo-sized edge that plays with these big, heavy hands, crashes hard against the run, 120 miles per hour every single snap. And then you go the opposite with Robinson, who's a developmental edge who hasn't played a lot of football, but man, some of the flashes that he got shows kind of freaky, slender, undersized pass rusher. You know, they take a basketball project in Caleb Lohner, 4 catches this year, 4 touchdowns. And Jeremy Crawshaw, obviously they wanted to get a big leg at punter in round 6. So a B- for the Broncos. It was just, once again, another rock solid kind of draft, but nothing too splashy in my opinion.
Yeah, obviously I'm going to be a little bit higher on them just because RJ Harvey pulls them up, and so does Jahdae Barron as well. My 11th ranked overall player, you're getting at number 20. I just think that that's phenomenal value there. I think one of the best defenses in the NFL only got better this past weekend. I think, and the reason why I love this draft a lot is because Jahdae Barron scheme fit, RJ Harvey scheme fit, Savion Jones, Quay Robinson, both of those guys scheme fits. Jeremy Crawshaw, okay, punter, fine. And then Caleb Lohner. Look, Sean Payton, I'm not saying the guy's the next Jimmy Graham.
But he's the next Jimmy Graham.
Actually, it's fine. Just make the graphic, whatever. But this is the coach that you would want to have somebody who is built like this with this kind of background, because he's had success with not just Jimmy Graham, but all sorts of tight ends. So I love all of that. The only reason this isn't an A draft for me is because of Pat Bryant. And I'm not going to be too hard on it because I think Pat Bryant's a really good football player. But Alec Iomaner, in my opinion, is better in basically every way. I understand that Iomaner wasn't as strong at the catch point as you want him to be this past season, but I think he certainly can be. And that's the area where Pat Bryant is great as well. But like the blocking, all of that, like Iomaner does that at a higher level than Pat Bryant does. And so that's why it's just a little bit lower for me, but it is still, if you're into Pat Bryant, if you like Pat Bryant, it's obviously a really good draft that the Denver Broncos had there. Cleveland Browns. Here we go. In the first round, they drafted Mason Graham while trading away from number 2, passing on Travis Hunter, but drafting Mason Graham at number 5. We'll talk about that. Carson Schlesinger in the second, Quinshon Judkins in the second, which, by the way, just want to say this. I'm not butthurt or anything, but I had a bet at plus 7,500 for Quinshon Judkins to go 33 to the Cleveland Browns because they had done a formal interview with him, and I knew they'd be in on him because it's local area dude from Ohio State. I knew that they actually liked this dude, and I put money on it, and if I would have hit, I would have won $1,500.
You could bet exact slot?
So at FanDuel, they had this as like only a couple, like only for 33 and 34 once round 1 was done before round 2 started. So they just did like the first couple. And at 33, it was the Browns. The problem was that they also picked at 36. And when they took Quinshon Judkins? Not at 33. They took him at 36.
I would be.
And if Quinshon Judkins would have gone at 33, I would have won $1,500.
I'd be irate. Genuinely, because you did everything the right way.
The process, you know what? We just got to have faith in the process. We'll be there next time. They got Harold Fannin in the third, also Dylan Gabriel in the third, Dylan Sampson in the fourth, and then Shadur Sanders, of course, at 144 in the fifth. I gave this draft a C-, Connor. What did you give them?
I gave it a B.
Okay. Let's hear about it.
Let me be totally honest. There is no more roller coaster tycoon draft than this one. Like, you're just throwing your hands up and screaming and then breathing again, and throwing your hands up and screaming and breathing again.
Remember in Roller Coaster Tycoon when people would get off the roller coaster and then puke, and then you'd have to clean it? You have to hire people to clean it up.
I mean, really sickening concept for a game.
It's the Cleveland Browns experience. It feels like.
Kind of was. Trading out of the pick where Travis Hunter could be had is a choice, but they got legitimate assets back, and I'm a big fan of Mason Graham. He was my 5th overall player. They got him at the 5th overall pick. I think he's going to be really good in Cleveland on this line. I didn't hate the trade out. I did not like the 2nd round pick of Schlesinger. He's on the ground all the time. He gets demolished by climbers. Yes, he's a good athlete, and good thing you got Mason Graham in front of him now, because you better clear out a lot of space for him to run around and make plays, or else he's going to have a tough time. I love Quinshon Judkins. I thought he was RB3 in this draft, and I think he's going to be a superstar in Stefanski's scheme. I was lower on Harold Fannin. I think you need to have a very unique plan for him. I don't think he's a traditional tight end. Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, exactly 100 spots higher than I had him. Dylan Sampson, good value as your change of pace guy in a zone-heavy scheme, and say what you want about all the Shador nonsense, and we're not gonna do that on this show. You can watch Mel Kiper's 45,000 clips from draft week if you need to. He's probably still somewhere in his kitchen right now talking about it to his wife or whoever it is. Shador Sanders to me was incredible value where they got him. We'll see how it all plays out. I didn't think Shador would go in the 1st round. I expected him kind of the top of the 2nd. I thought somebody would have to trade back into the 1st round if he was going to get taken, and the Giants went with Dart instead. They got Shador Sanders in the 5th round. As crazy as that whole thing is, let's just evaluate the player. That is really, really good value for a 5th round pick. So it was just up and down the entire draft for me with the Browns, and it landed in the middle point at a B.
Even beyond slighting the Browns for not taking Quinshon Judkins at 33 where they should have, this draft was all over the place for me.
Puke clean up.
The Mason Graham pick, I'm not too harsh on because you got an extra first-round pick and you acquired Mason Graham to your football team.
Yeah, that's objectively good business.
Thing. I think Travis Hunter is a generational football player.
That's fair.
And that's hard for me to say, like, okay, I like Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham could be great, and you got an extra first-round pick. And very clearly, you are not in on this quarterback class. You're loading up future first-round picks to do what you want to do next year at quarterback. Very clearly, that was the case. So I can understand the plan. I just don't love passing up on the generational football player that was Travis Hunter here. So I take that into account. I thought Schlesinger was overdrafted. Quinshon Judkins, it's fine. That one is totally fine.
Yeah,
was overdrafted
mad.
Versus my board, but like it was fine. If he was drafted 3 spots higher, again, it would have been better. Harold Fandon was overdrafted. Dylan Gabriel was overdrafted. Dylan Sampson, I thought, was excellent. I actually think
value.
Sampson and Quinshon Judkins, what a 1-2 combination.
In this game?
In this economy? Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I think these guys are going to be awesome. Shedeur, I don't really know how to give them credit for this. Because
that's really fair.
You know what I'm saying? Because
yes.
If I was going to give them credit for drafting Shedeur Sanders, I would have given them credit for drafting him at 94. And they drafted Dylan Gabriel at 94. And 50 picks later, they drafted Shedeur Sanders, which to me, I don't have any inside information on this, and I'm not trying to look too far into that, look-in video where they're all clapping and they look pissed off and depressed afterwards. But I think this was somebody up top called and said, you better draft Shedeur Sanders, and they drafted Shedeur Sanders. Now, the funny part about this is he's probably QB2 to start the season. They probably start Flacco, and Shedeur's probably QB2, and maybe he's QB1 before the year ends. But it's weird for me to give the Browns too much credit on how all these names came up. So I'm a little harsher on them, and I give them a C-.
I think your process is extremely fair. It kind of makes your front office, everyone in your front office, look like an ass if you get to camp and Shedeur is just wiping the floor with Dylan Gabriel, right?
Right.
If they never planned to take Shedeur and it really was a move from the top.
Because if you want to tell me, well, they don't have a quarterback and they need to take swings as a quarterback, I agree. But also, their offensive line is going to be either retired or gone entirely, basically, in 2 years. And you didn't draft anybody. You didn't draft anybody along the offensive line. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it just did. Kind of all over the place for me. But that's the thoughts on the Browns. The Buccaneers. What a class this was.
Man.
Emeka Egbuka in the first, Ben Morrison in the second, Jacob Parrish in the third, David Walker in the fourth, Elijah Roberts in the fifth, and Tez Johnson in the seventh. I gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a B+. That was my grade for them. What'd you give them?
I gave them an A.
Okay, all right.
Let's hear about it. They were my best grade. Yeah, and then I have a few A minuses, so it's like this big pool. But
whoa, all right.
I loved this draft. I just think that Jason Light understands how to supplement a roster all 3 days of the draft, where teams kind of get hot and cold. Emeka Egbuka, they just took a really good football player, right? Mm-hmm. And it feels like they kind of had the self-awareness, like, hey, our wide receiver core we love, but they're going to get old and they're going to get hurt. And we feel it's really important to have 3 to 4 capable wide receivers on this roster at all times. And you get Emeka Egbuka at 19 is a good deal of business. The A will look right or wrong based on how Benjamin Morrison comes back from hip surgery. I am completely honest about that. Like, if he doesn't bounce back to the 2023 self, then this isn't an A. That's the risk they were willing to take. I like the risk. Jacob Parrish was one of my guys in this draft. I had him in the top 60. They got him at 84. I wrote in my write-up, like, Todd Bowles, when he got to New York, the Jets signed Buster Skrine, and Skrine's career didn't end great with the Jets, but that first year they had him, he was unbelievable as a smaller corner, built exactly like Parrish with speed and ball skills. I think that's what he saw in Parrish. David Walker, I think it's gonna work from the FCS. I think he's gonna be able to get after the quarterback at the next level. Elijah Roberts was good value as well, another guy that just knows how to get after the quarterback. I really like this draft. I think they attacked areas that they needed to get better at, and I think this roster looks really, really good for them to win this division.
This honestly could have been an A- for me. It might be a B+ just because it was not what I thought that they would do at all whatsoever. And the shock value just might be there, and I'm kind of putting that into my overall grades for them. I think Emeka Egbuka is a hell of a football player. He gets drafted 19. He was ranked 19th on my board. I mean, I think that he is phenomenal. I just think that it's a crowded wide receiver room now in a place where you were already, I feel like, deep enough. And maybe they don't fully trust Chris Godwin coming back from that injury. But if that's the case, you gave him a lot of money. It's a little bit weird to me that they went this direction. I love Benjamin Morrison. I think that's an excellent pick. I love the Jacob Parrish pick because now it allows them to play Tyke Smith at safety, which they talked about they wanted to do. Morrison gives them the flexibility to move on from Jamel Dean if they want, or keep him and have a good cornerback room this upcoming year. Then maybe this is Jamel Dean's last year in Tampa. You can continue to build out corner. David Walker, I think, fits well now that they have Hassan Reddick. So now, with him and Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby, like that's a decent edge rush group there. Elijah Roberts, I love, is that mix and match interior / heavy-handed edge player. I think that's excellent. Tez Johnson's just a separation goat. And I don't know if he's going to make the team, but we'll see. I mean, he had fantastic numbers and great film this past year doing it, but they didn't address linebacker, which is okay. Jahad Campbell's shoulder must have really been something for them because for them to pass up on both Jahad Campbell and honestly Donovan Ezeraku for Emeka Egbuka at number 19 was just very surprising to me. And if Campbell ends up being just an absolute stud for the Philadelphia Eagles and that shoulder injury ends up being just like a short-term thing, I think there's a chance for some buyer's remorse here. And I think that I'm building that in a little bit. Maybe I'm just being cautious about the direction they went. But we say that we love for teams to go best player available, and certainly the Buccaneers went best player available at number 19, and they didn't look at a guy that they thought was going to be a risk health-wise, character-wise, or whatever. They got a dude who is an absolute stud there. So I actually really like all the players that they drafted.
That was it for me.
I just didn't expect it, so I gave him a B. I gave him a B+. Cardinals, Walter Nolan in the first, Will Johnson in the second, Jordan Burch in the third, Cody Simon in the fourth, Denzel Burke in the fifth, Hayden Connor in the sixth, and then Keaton Crawford in the seventh. I gave the Arizona Cardinals a B+. Like a lot of the players that they brought in, they just didn't address offensive line at all, and I thought they would. Connor, what'd you think?
I gave him a B+ as well, and I wrote that this grade is so largely dependent on what happens with Will Johnson, because Will Johnson was my 10th ranked player, and they got him at 47.
Yep.
So if he's able to get through these health issues that teams were concerned about, I think Will Johnson's a better prospect than Walter Nolan on paper. Now, they did more than just that, though. It's Nolan, I thought, was a fringe first rounder. I had him at 33, but I think they have a plan for him that'll work. And more importantly, I think Calais Campbell and some of the veterans in that defensive line room are really, really good for Walter Nolan's development because he's very raw still in terms of countering and getting off blocks and being over aggressive at times. I think this is a good spot for him. Jordan Burch gives them just that big, heavy-handed edge rusher that can kind of play multiple alignments. A little early for Cody Simon for me. Denzel Burke, pretty good value, decent value on that one, in my opinion. Depth at corner. And then Crawford, I think with his athleticism, can play special teams for them. Hayden Connor, right where I had him, he might be able to develop into depth at guard for you. But I'm with you, Trevor, that what separated this from being in the A's was just that I didn't think they addressed the offensive line need the way they needed to. But I love them taking the shot at Will Johnson because if he hits, that's what we'll remember this draft for.
Yeah, because let me look here. When did Jared Wilson get drafted? 95th
to New England.
Yeah, I mean, they could have drafted like a Jared Wilson. Wouldn't Wyatt Milam after that as well? Where Jordan Burch was picked.
Right.
And it's like Jordan Burch, I think, was at that point a luxury pick. And so again, I kind of like all the players that they got in there. I just sort of wish that third round pick would have been interior offensive line, and if it would have, you're really impacting that starting lineup for you and things are good. Cody Simon, yeah, he was overdrafted on my board, but I said this on the PFF draft show. Simon's kind of one of the few Sam linebackers in this class.
That's
like
fair.
Dudes who can play on the line of scrimmage when you
Right.
want to go 4-3 base. And I think Gannon likes to mix it up and do odd fronts and even front stuff. And Simon's at least somebody who could play that. Denzel Burke's good cornerback depth there. And I think Keaton Crawford is a really nice athlete who showcased that. And at the very least, I think he's going to be a fast special teamer for you. So I did like this draft. I just wish they would have gone with interior offensive line there in that third.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Good draft, though, for Arizona, for sure.
Yes, definitely. We talked about this at the top of the show, but this show is presented by our friends over at Arena. It's the sports super app that is combining DFS, social media feed, sports news, all that great stuff into one spot. Go download the Arena Sports app, Arena Sports in the App Store on Apple and Android. You can see it's that blue sort of like diamond icon there. And come out and hang out with us. We're doing all sorts of great stuff over there at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers, the at NFLSE show. We're doing all sorts of exclusive content for them. Every week, we're doing multiple clips of exclusive content on our individual pages as well as on the NFLSE show. Page 2, going back and forth with you guys, just going to continue to talk draft, and especially when we get into summer scouting, we're going to be having a lot of exclusive summer scouting thoughts there on the Arena app as well. If you're into the DFS side of things, which should be, $200 deposit will get matched up to that $200 from our friends over at Arena. It's not just NFL bets, it's NBA, it's NHL, all different kinds of stuff on there. So your boy's hot. Your boy's hot with the shots on goal. I still am. I'm still cooking. I think I'm 3 for 3 right now with the shots on goal bets. So I've had a couple where I've strung it together and done a little bit of a parlay action there. So you guys can check out all the lines that they have there, get some skin in the game. It's a really fun way to watch sports there. So when you're putting a deposit down, you can get up to a $200 deposit match. So check out our friends over at Arena, Sports Super App, combining everything that you love about DFS, about social media, and about your sports news. It is all in one place. Type in Arena Sports. That's probably the best way to find it in the app, but do that and check them out, and come hang out with us over there. If you follow us on our individual pages, we're going to follow you back because we're bringing the addicts together. Bringing the addicts together over on the Arena Sports app. Chargers. Next draft that we're looking at here, Omarion Hampton in the first, Trey Harris in the second, Jamari Caldwell in the third, Kyle Kennard in the fourth, Keandre Lambert-Smith in the fifth, Aronde Gadsden in the second, in the fifth as well, Branson Taylor in the sixth, as well as R.J. Mickens in the sixth, and then Triquez Bridges in the seventh. I gave the Los Angeles Chargers an A. Connor, what did you give them?
I gave him a B+.
Right.
This was a really good draft in terms of volume. Hampton is just an identity player for them on offense with the physicality he brings on all 3 downs. Trey Harris, I think, is going to turn into everything they were initially hoping Quentin Johnston would be. That was kind of how...
This is a perfect landing spot for him, right?
It really is with
Perfect.
Herbert. He'll be their number 2 wide receiver in the future. Jamari Caldwell, you lose Poona Ford in free agency, you bring in Jamari Caldwell. Chef's kiss. Absolutely love that. Another one of my guys in this draft. You lose Stone Smart in free agency, you get Aronde Gadsden in the 5th. He plays that same exact role that Stone Smart played for you. And then my favorite pick in terms of value, because they got 107 positive spots out of it from my board, was R.J. Mickens. I think R.J. Mickens is a starter at the next level. He's smart. He's athletic. He's got good length. He comes to balance as a tackler. He just does NFL bloodlines, plays the exact right way you want from the safety position, disciplined. I think R.J. Mickens will look back and go, why did that guy go in the 6th round when he gets an extension in 3 years?
Yeah, I think that this was an excellent draft. I can't really hold this against them because, I kind of wish they would have gone defensive line in the 1st round, but that wasn't really an option, right? Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, all of those guys were gone when they got to that point. So I can't really be too hard on him, even though I would have liked to see one of those names there and maybe address running back, say, in the 3rd. I would have liked that to be flipped. Omarion Hampton could be their RB1. He could truly be a guy that you lean on all 3 downs. I agree with you completely. This is such a great landing spot for Trey Harris, and it's going to be able to get the most out of what he is, a vertical stretching wide receiver and a contested catch guy down the sideline. Kyle Kennard, excellent to be able to get that type of a player who racked up as many sacks as he did this past season to play with Uchenna Nwosu and Khalil Mack as well to increase some pass rush potential. Keandre Lambert-Smith is sort of more the same with Trey Harris. You're just really trying to open up the field vertically. So all of that is there. Gaston's a bet to make as a tall, big slot type of a player. And then I agree with you, man. I think Mickens can be a starter in this league. I really do. He is such a solid football player. So I think that the Chargers addressed all of the needs that I wanted them to. I think they were able to draft players for value. And even when you got into day 3, I thought their day 3 bets were really good football players. So love this Chargers draft. Gave him an A. The Chiefs, Josh Simmons in the first round. Omar Norman-Lott, my boy, getting in the second round. Ashton Gelati in the third. Noel Williams as well in the third. Jalen Royals in the fourth. Jeffrey Bassa in the fifth. And Brashard Smith in the seventh. I gave the Kansas City Chiefs an A. Once again, this is back-to-back A's here for me. What did you give the Chiefs, Connor?
I gave them a B because it's the volatility of this grade is just whatever Josh Simmons' health situation is. And that's why I had him at 34th, and the reason they got him at 32. Mm-hmm. He has all the makings of a franchise left tackle if he's healthy and continues to get stronger because he's a great athlete with already natural size. Omar Norman-Lott, he's pass rush minded, not a run defender at all. And that's okay here, right? When you look at what they lose in free agency, he's got so much twitch, active hands. He's tough to match his movements. Ashton Gelati gives you a little bit of a power profile on the edge of that long arm. I know people really like this player. I didn't like Noel Williams. So and people seem to be very high on Noel Williams.
Oh, I see where he is. I see where he is on your board now. This makes sense now.
I didn't see it with Noel. It's funny. They lost a ton of value from in the third round on Noel Williams, and then they gained it all back with Jalen Royals.
Yeah.
Like all of it back with Jalen Royals.
Dude, how did Jalen Royals go in the fourth? They just
don't
think
know.
He's slow, right?
Yes, but the time speed after, if you went back and looked at this, you're like, no, he had to play slow at times in that offense. He's not in an offense where he's got somebody with a howitzer that could hit him on all levels all the time.
Yeah, because 10-yard split was 93rd percentile, 40-yard dash was 81st percentile.
And he's big, like the dense. He has good density.
Let me see.
He's not 170 pounds.
Yeah, keep going. I'm looking up his eight-game athleticism score because I want to see what that was.
I thought Royals was just tremendous value in that spot. Bassa, they got him in the round. I thought he should have went. Brashard Smith was good value. That was a 30-spot value for me because of his pass-catching ability out of the backfield, which they needed. This had a B because it was just a steady Eddie draft. They kind of, besides Noel Williams, that was the pick I was lowest on. But I like this spot for Simmons because he doesn't have to be out on the field day one at left tackle. This is actually a place that you could slow play it. It always made sense for Simmons. And I think that's something the Chiefs are really, really excited about because they can wait on his talent and health and feel really, really good about when he's ready.
Yeah, this is a big value draft for me. Josh Simmons, good value. Omar Norman-Lott, great value. Jalen Royals, great value. Noel Williams was sort of appropriate for where I had him. Ashton Gelati was a little bit early, but I get it. The other part is like scheme fits, man. You mentioned Omar Norman-Lott. This is a really good spot for him. I agree. Scheme fit there. Ashton Gelati, this is how they like their edge rushers built. Scheme fit there. Noel Williams, I think, is a scheme fit for what Steve Spagnuolo likes in his corners. Jeff Bassa, that sort of like safety linebacker hybrid.
Yeah, that one made a lot of sense.
That one makes a ton of sense. And then Brashard Smith, man, like Brashard Smith is the receiving back out of the backfield that this team's missing. So I really do think that they hit a lot of their needs. They hit the needs up front with their first and second selections. And the scouting staff and the general manager in Brett Veach knows Andy Reid and his coaching staff so well. And I think this was a draft where you're just aligning what these guys do, where they are going to play in Kansas City. And I think a lot of these guys are going to be good football players for the Kansas City Chiefs.
The point you just made was constant with the organizations that nailed that. When there's sustainability and structure in the front office that aligns with the coaching staff. That's the Chiefs have that, the Eagles have that, the Ravens have that, the Bucks have that.
The Bucks have that.
And the Lions have that.
Yep.
It's no coincidence that I liked all of those drafts. And I think there's teams that are starting to show that they can get there. When we get to the Raiders, I'll break that down. I was very impressed with like Pete Carroll and John Spytek. That you nailed that, Trevor. Those teams typically get the highest grades because it aligns with what their identity and what they want to do.
Indianapolis Colts, Tyler Warren in the first round after all those mocks. They ended up being right there. Tyler Warren dropping to them at number 14. I don't know if you noticed this, Connor, but it took the Indianapolis Colts exactly 2 seconds to turn in the draft card. They know. I think the NFL normally tells them, like, hey, play it out a little bit. Yeah, go for 5 minutes. Chris Ballard's like, nope, say the name.
You know when an NFL coach marches down the sideline and stands behind the ref and it's like, I'm going to tell you when I'm going to call a timeout. I'm going to tell you when. It's the clock. Ballard was behind Roger Goodell and was like, as soon as this pick comes in at 13, I'm fucking drafting Tyler Warren so fast. You better run to that. You better get that goddamn bike out and fucking pedal out on that stage and say Tyler Warren right now. They were ecstatic to get him. It was a cool moment. I gave it a B+. It was a good draft.
You're so right. I didn't even name the rest of the players.
Sorry.
You said it. Warren, they drafted JT Tuimoloau in the second, Justin Wally in the third, Jalen Travis in the fourth, DJ Giddens in the fifth, Riley Leonard in the sixth, Tim Smith in the sixth, and then Hunter Waller in the seventh. Would you say you gave him?
A B+.
I gave him a B. I thought it was solid picks all around. I think that Justin Wally was overdrafted a little bit for where I had him on my big board, but I really want to like this corner.
Me too.
The footwork, the explosiveness, the recognition, it's all there with Wally. I just need him to get stronger. You just got to get a little bigger. That's all I need for you. Again, 1 cycle of anabolic steroids, get popped for 8 games, and then you'll just be an all-pro corner right there.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
I thought it was a solid draft, though. I did for Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think they got a little bit of everything. Hunter Waller in the 7th round, I loved that pick. I think he can match up with tight ends and play special teams, and he's a hard-nosed guy at the line of scrimmage. Warren is just an amazing get for them. JT Tuimoloau is somebody that just gives you a big edge-setting presence up front. I agree with all your takes on Wally. Jalen Travis, I have a little bit of concerns about being an actual NFL tackle because of the lack of quickness in the kick slide.
Yeah, but this is also, if Ryan Poles wasn't going to be the number 1 general manager when it comes to drafting for RES, Chris Ballard would be number 1 because this is just what he does. And Jalen Travis, I think that he is just, and honestly, Jalen Travis, JT Tuimoloau, I think even DJ Giddens, like all those guys, super high RAS guys.
Giddens is fun in this offense. Obviously, they have guys that are capable of running the football already, but Giddens was great.
I think he's RB2.
Yeah.
I think he's RB2.
His ability to make people miss is just so, the way he could slice and dice. I really like this draft for the Colts. Obviously, their season is going to be judged by what one of Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson does, but they have a good football team and the right football coach.
Commanders, small class here for the Washington Commanders. Josh Connolly in the first, Trey Amos in the second, Jalen Lane in the fourth, Kay Medrano in the sixth, and then your boy, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt in the seventh. So they end up going with Josh Connolly at the very top for the Commanders. What did I give them? I gave them a B+ here. Connolly over a trade back, I think, was interesting for me because they said that they had options to trade back. They opted to not do that. But I don't necessarily hate it, even though I wasn't as high on Connolly as other people were out there. He was still 30th on my board. He gets drafted 29th here. I think that that's fair. Whether they should have traded back or not, I think that's sort of a little bit of a Pandora's box kind of, you just don't know exactly what would happen after that. You don't know what the ripple effect would be if you would have traded back there because we don't know the exact trades details that would have been there. But I at least think that Connolly could play at guard while Sam Cosmi is recovering from that late season injury. And then long term, when Cosmi is back, you can kick him out to right tackle because Andrew Wiley's on the last year of his deal. So I don't hate that. I love Trey Amos in this defense. I think that he's going to be absolutely great with Dan Quinn. Jalen Lane, I think he was overdrafted, but they're just trying to make a speed play there for a guy in the 4th round, so I get it. So ultimately, I gave him a B+ here.
Yeah, I gave them a B- with a caveat that when I wrote these up for NBC, I just wanted to evaluate hauls. So I said it was always going to be tough for the Commanders to get a big grade, because they did the right thing and traded picks for Laramie Tunsil. But I'm not going to, with draft grades, I'm stacking my board where they got them, the players. Here's the grade of this. It doesn't say anything about the team, what they did last draft with future picks, or they got this veteran. So when you take into that context, which is very important, this is good work by the Commanders to get a B- with 5 picks.
Yeah.
You know the kind of fan I was of Connerly. I had him 29th. They got him 29th. This is the weirdest draft, by the way. Trevor, listen to this. They took Connerly at 29th. I had him 29th. They took Trey Amos at 61. I had him at 61. It was one of those really weird, like, spot-on things.
Were you freelancing for the Commanders as well? You didn't tell me?
Man.
You didn't tell me?
The way that organization is going, sign me up. I just want to see the plan for him.
Yeah.
Now, a booster of this class is guy that maybe could start or we don't know is on the fringe, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
Yeah.
In the 7th round, Brian Robinson got beat up so much last year. His body was just every week on the practice report. Didn't practice the first 2 or 3 days. We'll see if he can play this week. Over and over and over again. Austin Eckler had concussions. Krosky-Merritt might be getting carries for this team in October or November, and I wouldn't be shocked. I think he's a physical, hard-charging runner. He's not going to give you a lot of other things, but he's that kind of runner. So that was my favorite day 3 pick for them, and Jalen Lane's pretty explosive. So yeah, they made the most of what they had.
Cowboys, Tyler Booker in the 1st round, Donovan Ezaraku in the 2nd, Siobhan Ravel in the 3rd. Holy cow, man. 3 great football players. Jaden Blue in the 5th, Shamar James in the 5th, Ajani Cornelius in the 6th, Jay Toya in the 7th, Phil Maffa in the 7th, and then Tommy Aking Besotti in the 7th as well. Your thoughts here on the Cowboys? I gave them an A. I gave the Dallas Cowboys an A for this draft.
I gave them a B+, and I think this is one where, as I stare at it more and more, I probably should have been a little bit more kind. It probably should have been in the A- territory, because my big criticism is I really wanted to see them come out of this draft with a receiver, and they weren't able to do that. But when you just look at the players, like Tyler Booker was a little early at 12 for a guard, an athletically limited guard. But on day 2 in the 2nd and 3rd round, they got my 28th ranked player in Donovan Ezaraku and my 27th ranked player in Savone Revel Jr. So that's insane value. Coming out with a vengeance to get somebody I think can be a pure pass rusher for your defense and a potential number 1 corner. Jay Toya in the 7th round might have been
That's your boy.
That's
your boy.
This team needs a clogger up front. Mozzie Smith has not been able to do it. Jay Toya's one job is get your thick frame out there on the field, drive your legs into the ground, and do not get moved off the line of scrimmage by multiple blockers. And he does it. He's really good at it. Really good at it. All that freedom for the guys behind him to run around and make plays. And Jaden Blue, the pass-catching dynamic running back threat, big route tree, this was the right kind of running back to add to this offense.
I'm calling Jay Toya the clogger.
The clogger.
Just from now on. No, I agree with you. It's a strange draft, but I was saying this on the PFF NFL show when we were doing our live streams. There's a reason why we don't make content that are like draft grades after round 1. Because you shouldn't.
No.
Straight up.
Look at the Cowboys.
You have to, at least, in my opinion, get through rounds 1 and 3 to see draft strategies on the impact players that you are bringing to your team. And even though I thought Tyler Booker was heavily overdrafted at number 12.
Yep.
If you would have told me that they drafted Donovan Ezaraku at 12, Tyler Booker at 44, and Savone Revel at 76, phenomenal.
I agree.
And I think that I would have had a way different mood for the Cowboys in the 1st round. And looking at their top 3 picks, all just difference-making football players at the positions that you wanted. Now, I give them an A. I could have given them an A- because they didn't hit wide receiver, but you know my thoughts on wide receiver. You can get one multiple times every year. They could still trade for George Pickens, right?
Yeah.
He's out there.
In theory.
He's on the trade block. I just, whether it's in the summer, whether it's during the draft, whether it's in free agency, or whether it's at the trade deadline, you have opportunities to acquire impact wide receivers all the time. And so I'm not going to be that harsh when you have a wide receiver need the way the Cowboys do, where you're just sort of trying to compliment CeeDee Lamb, and they don't do it. I think that they could do it later, but I agree. Jaden Blue's a great compliment to what they have there. Shamar James is just more depth at the linebacker spot. I love the additions of Ajani Cornelius and Jay Toya there. A draft here for the Cowboys.
Yep.
Dolphins, Kenneth Grant in the 1st round, Jonah Savanaia in the 2nd, Jordan Phillips in the 5th, Jason Marshall Jr. in the 5th, Dante Trader in the 5th, Ollie Gordon in the 6th, Quinn Ewers in the 7th. Imagine saying that to somebody 2 years ago.
Weird, right? That's a weird.
That the Dolphins got Ollie Gordon and Quinn Ewers in the 6th and 7th round.
They'd slap you and say, get off this mock draft simulator. Like, you can't even do that in the mock draft simulator.
No, you wouldn't have been able to. No. And then they also got Zeke Biggers in the 7th. I gave the Miami Dolphins a B for this draft. What did you give them?
I gave them a C+. And it's a little similar to the Niners situation where they went to the draft and said, we got to get tougher as a run defense team. And they did. Kenneth Grant, Jordan Phillips, and Zeke Biggers are all run-stopping defensive tackles. That's what they are right now. Grant has more upside as a rusher than the other two. That's why he's a first-round pick. And so that's a good thing. The trade up for Savanaia was a little rich, and it's nice to get him, but I think this offensive line still has holes. I do not like this secondary at all on paper. And I'm a little surprised that their supplementation to it is Jason Marshall in the 5th and Dante Trader in the 5th. I think Trader actually might push one of Ashton Davis, or anybody in that safety room, which that safety room right now is really, really thin. And we're going to see what happens with Jalen Ramsey. But Trader could obviously push one of Melifonwu or Ashton Davis. But it's a really thin safety room. They're thin at corner. The offensive line to me is still a work in progress. I don't know. I didn't really love this draft. Besides that, I feel confident the Dolphins are going to be really, really good at stopping the run. But that's exactly what I said about the 49ers, and I was harsher on them.
It's hard for me to be too harsh on the Dolphins for their draft because, and maybe I could have gone a little bit lower because I forgot that they traded up for Savanaia and they traded that 2nd and 3rd rounder and 4th rounder, and then they got something kicked back.
Yeah.
So I forgot that they had to trade up to do that, but I'm trying not to be overly harsh on the Dolphins because this roster is not very good, and there's no way they were going to be able to fix it in one draft.
Right.
And so when I look at it like that, they attacked the trenches at least, They at least went after the two areas where it's like, okay, you kind of ignored interior defensive line and offensive line for the last year, and at least the last year, and it came back to bite you last season. So at least I don't want to be too harsh because they did address those with guys who I think are starters on both sides of the ball, and I think Jordan Phillips can be a good rotational and run stuffer for you on early downs as well. Zeke Biggers is a good presence on the defensive line too. But you kind of better hope that you don't trade Jalen Ramsey, right? You better hope Jalen Ramsey feels good about being in Miami, because if you do trade Jalen Ramsey, now all of a sudden I get really worried. I get really worried about this secondary. But at least the offensive line is like, hey, after free agency in the draft, you took Patrick Paul. I'm more worrisome of Patrick Paul, but hey, you drafted him in the 2nd round, so he's going to get a shot to play. You signed James Daniels, who had a really great season last year before we went down with injury. You have Aaron Brewer at center. You got Big Jonah now at right guard, and you got Austin Jackson at right tackle. At least that's okay, right? And then you add Kenneth Grant. You add Jordan Phillips to that defensive line, which really needed it. So I gave him a B. I ended up giving him a B, but I can understand wanting to be a little harsher on him because the secondary is not great, but that's where I landed with the Dolphins.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, the Jalen Ramsey side of it, Rap Sheet has come out and said, they've mutually decided to figure out trade options. So I went into this thinking he will not be on the Dolphins next year.
And if he is not on the Dolphins, then obviously it looks bad, but again, you weren't going to fix it. You couldn't. There's just no. That's the roster. That's where the roster is.
Yeah, Chris
the
Greer,
regime
man,
has not done a good enough job.
He's a cat.
Straight up.
He's got 9 lives out there. He really does. And I know Dolphins fans agree. I'm not telling them anything they don't know.
So again, I gave him a B. I guess I probably could have given it lower, but it was hard for me to. I try to remind myself not to be too harsh on him because there's just no way that they were going to fix all the holes in one draft. The Eagles. Howie did it again. Jihad Campbell in the 1st, Andrew Makuba in the 2nd, Ty Robinson in the 4th, Mac McWilliams in the 5th, Smael Mondin in the 5th, Drew Kendall in the 5th, and then 4 6th-round picks, Kyle McCord, Miles Hinton, Cam Williams, Antoine Powell-Ryland. Jeez, Howie. Save some for the rest of us, brother. I gave this draft an A. What'd you give him?
A B+. And I think it's almost because I'm always so blown away by their drafts that I'm grading on the Eagles and the Howie scale, where any other team it would be like, this is an A-. This is really good. It's not fair, the bar he's set. Obviously, Jihad Campbell falls due to medical, and this is the team that can take that risk because they always can take the risk. Makuba was my favorite pick. You put a actual safety with range and ball skills behind this front and those corners, Makuba's going to be flying around making plays through the air. Ty Robinson, this is what the Eagles do. They see a falling defensive lineman that's kind of this, this sledgehammer, like bouncing.
Awesome,
but yeah, it's an awesome pick, Ty Robinson. The way the effort he plays with, the heavy-handedness. McCord, if they see some more out of McKee and somebody wants to trade something for McKee, then let McCord step into the next developmental role as McKee, and then getting two colossal tackles in Mile Hinton and Cam Williams that I valued more than where they took these guys and put them in the school of Jeff Stoutland.
Yep. Might have been my favorite picks, to be honest with you.
One of those two are going to develop under him. Yep. I had Hinton at 167. They got him at 191. I had Cam Williams at 128. They got him at 207.
I had Cam at 93.
Right.
And they got him at 209.
Right. So
Antoine Powell-Ryland's excellent
done
value,
it again.
in my opinion. Truly. He has. They had a quote afterwards. Howie said this about Jihad Campbell. We looked at the draft as a long-term opportunity for our team. We have a lot of confidence that this guy, Jihad Campbell, is going to be here and play at a really high level for a long time. He also mentioned that they tried to move up even higher to select him. So I think people who may be looking at like, oh, why'd you trade up one pick? They had, I guess, been trying to move up to go get him for a couple of selections before they ended up being able to make a deal with Kansas City to assure that they were going to get him there. But I think this draft is perfect for them. Impact linebacker. Makuba is just a fly around defensive back and do a lot of different stuff. Ty Robinson's just an excellent dirty work player. You're taking bets on Miles Hinton and Cam Williams, and Antoine Powell-Ryland's a great designated pass rusher to get in the sixth. Ismail Mondin, just an athletic linebacker as well. Like, this was just a classic Eagles draft that I thought was awesome. It really was. Howie's very good at this. Falcons, 5 picks in this draft. Jalen Walker in the first, James Pierce Jr. in the first after a massive trade-up that included them moving on from their first-round pick next year. Although they did get some back because I think they traded, a 5th or 6th round pick and jumped all the way up into the 3rd round, the back end of the 3rd round. So they got some back. But hey, giving up a first-round pick is giving up a first-round pick. And that's what really matters here, going up to get James Pierce Jr. They also drafted Xavier Watts in the 3rd round, Billy Bowman in the 4th round, and then Jack Nelson in the 7th. I gave the Atlanta Falcons, after all that, with the trade up, with losing the first-round pick, I gave the Falcons still a B+ in this draft. What did you give them?
I gave them a B-.
Okay. I think we are going to be higher on the Falcons draft than a lot of people out there.
Because of the trade?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are killing the Falcons and killing Terry Fontenot for the trade. And I definitely took that into account here.
Yep.
I did. But Xavier Watts is excellent value in the 3rd round.
Him and Bowman together is awesome.
Bowman's excellent value, I think, in the 4th round, especially for how they run that defense. James Pierce Jr. gives them juice as a pass rusher. And then Jalen Walker, they overdrafted Jalen Walker compared to where I had him, but he could be a great football player for him. And so ultimately, I gave him a B+. I gave the Falcons a B+ here.
So what I like about this draft is that there's like the good and bad of Jeff Ulbrich in this situation. Is that Jeff Ulbrich was with the Jets when Quincy Williams got picked up on waivers and became an All-Pro. And when you watch Jalen Walker, you wonder if there's some development angles that were the same as Quincy Williams, but he also has more rush potential. Quincy's an A+ blitzer. Jalen could be an actual rusher off the edge. Mm-hmm. I was lower on Pierce than not only where they took him, but the price they paid to get him. They better be sure he's locked in.
See, that's also the thing, is I think that people look at the trade and they go like, how are you trading for Pierce? I had him 23rd overall on my board. So you traded up to 26 to get him. I mean, that's where I thought he should have been picked, and he was lower on yours, so it makes sense that you'd be a little lower.
I had him 41st. He really needs to lock in, and hopefully this is the scheme that could do that. I love the safeties. Insane value on both Watts and Bowman. My number one question, Trevor, is now without a first rounder next year, is Michael Penix like, you got enough out there, partner. Drake London and Bijan Robinson, and, we'll see with Mooney and Pitts. Don't you like to have assets for your quarterback in the future? Or spend maybe a draft pick that's not Jack Nelson to help him out too? I don't know. It just feels like they made a huge bet on Michael Penix, one that I loved. Mm-hmm. But now we're like, they'll be good out there. I don't know. I wouldn't have traded the future first. And if I was going to trade the future first, I would have made sure I got him some kind of help in this free agency or draft that I felt good about. So that's a lingering issue with the Falcons that I am a little concerned about.
You know what? I'm actively doing this. I'm going to change my grade to a B- because I forgot that, if they would have stayed at 46, now hindsight is tough to tell, but if they would have stayed at 46, they could have gotten either Nick Scorton or Mike Green at that point in time. I understand that the Mike Green conversation is different.
Yeah.
Or you could have traded up for Donovan Ezeraku and traded away a lot less to make that happen. So with that being the case, I'm going to change this to a B-. I still love the dudes who they were able to get later. I still like James Pierce Jr. I think he could be good for them. I really do. But I do think that they overpaid to get up to where they wanted to. You got to hope that James Pierce Jr. is phenomenal for that to be the case. I'm not too worried about wide receiver, again, because, would you have liked to have that first-round asset for next year? Of course you would. But, again, I think they could get receiver all the time. So,
what do you think the look on their faces was like when the Giants trade came in after they signed off on their trade?
That's another part that sucks. Right? Because the Giants trade up for 2 third-round picks, and the Falcons traded up for a first-rounder. But then, again, they moved up from somewhere in the 200s. I can't remember where exactly it was. And then they got into the back part of the third round for this draft. So they were still able to do that. You mitigated a little bit, but it is hard giving up a first-round pick. I do think, though, bottom line is they were aggressive in their approach to this draft, no doubt about it. But this defense is significantly better now.
Yes.
Significantly better. And that is still the game. That is still what you want to do. You don't want to do it recklessly, and I think there could have been a little bit of recklessness here. But at the end of the day, you're trying to make your football team better. And I do think that they made their football team a lot better this draft. So those are my thoughts there. All right, before we get on to the next team, NFLSC's draft coverage is brought to you by our friends over at Jack Link's Duos. Jack Link's knows that there's nothing like a great duo. That's why they created the new Jack Link's Duos product. What they'll do is they take 2 great flavors of beef jerky and put it in one bag. We know that the NFL draft can give us some great duos every single year. Like the Houston Texans, who we'll get to in a second here, being the team that drafted both Iowa State wide receivers, creating that great duo. That Cyclone duo, bringing them back into the NFL. That's a duo that we had here this year. As for Jack Link's duos, they've got great flavors like mango and jalapeno that are together in this product. Original or teriyaki is another flavor combination. Buffalo and ranch, that's a great one as well. So if you're into it, go check it out. Find Jack Link's duos wherever you buy Jack Link's jerky, your local convenience stores, or even at select Walmarts. The New York Giants took Abdul Carter in the first round, traded up for Jackson Dart in the first round as well. Then Darius Alexander in the third, Cam Skattebo, hell yeah, brother, in the fourth, Marcus Bowe in the fifth, Thomas Fidone the second in the seventh, and then Corey Black in the seventh as well. I gave the New York Giants a B+. What did you give the Giants?
I gave them a B, and it's really simple. There's a lot of players I liked in this draft. Abdul Carter, going to be a star. Darius Alexander, the kind of player you want next to Dexter Lawrence. Skattebo, the kind of player that churns through contact you want paired with Tyrone Tracy. Marcus Bowe is better than a 5th rounder. Significantly better than a 5th rounder.
Yes.
Could be a really good backup for you at guard and center. I am skeptical Jackson Dart is going to be the guy for them for the long-term future. And that's it. And the trade was fine. Like they didn't get robbed like the Falcons seemingly did. Mm-hmm. It's just that this is what's probably going to decide the fate of Dable and Shane. And I'm skeptical that Dart's the long-term answer. But man, they still got to be, even after I don't love the quarterback selection, because they got a lot of good football players. I like Corey Black in the 7th round.
Dude, excellent special teamer at the very least.
Special teams, ball skills, good in single coverage.
Yeah.
Corey Black at 246. I have him at 182. So
I got him at 199. So yeah.
Good draft by Joe Shane. I just wonder if quarterback is just ultimately going to kind of decide their fate for better or for worse.
I mean, I could have given him a B. I gave him a B plus simply because Abdul Carter, appropriate range of where he was drafted. Darius Alexander plus value. Cam Scatterbo plus value. Marcus Bowe plus value. Thomas Fidone plus value. Corey Black plus value. So I thought that they got plus value at every single draft pick other than Jackson Dart. But you're taking a swing at the quarterback, and you didn't get robbed to do it, like you said. So that's why I ended up going with a B plus for them. I think they navigated things the way that they needed to. And again, I've said this before on this show. I do feel kind of bad for the Giants because I think that they have been in on the quarterback market in every single way throughout the entire process. I think they have tried to trade up to number 1 overall. I think they were trying to trade for Matthew Stafford. I think they were probably calling about Geno Smith. Like, they have tried. Yeah. They have tried to do it.
They didn't want to be in on this class, I don't think.
And they didn't, I don't think they really wanted to be in on it, but other than Cam Ward, they probably said it's him or Jackson Dart. Let's take Jackson Dart. Because in this quarterback class, I would find it very, 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 very shocking, especially with how it ended up playing out, that any NFL team was like, yeah, we got 4 or 5 of these guys that we like. It was probably, yeah, we like Cam Ward and pick one other guy. Jalen, whoever's QB2 for you, Shedeur, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck. I almost guarantee that after those 2 guys, whoever they were, that was it. It's not like it was close after that.
Right.
So I try to not be too hard on that for the Giants, who, I agree with you, man. I thought they had a great draft. I think Cam Scatterbo is an excellent thunder and lightning to Tyrone Tracy. Marcus Bowe, in my opinion, has not just starter potential, but like impact potential as a center, man. If they ever wanted to move him to center. Darius Alexander, he's an older prospect, but man, I think he's going to be great next to Dexter Lawrence, especially because, man, if they keep Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, even if they trade Kayvon Thibodeau, that's a nasty front right there. So
pass rushing waves.
Yep. Pass rushing waves, which is, how the Giants won a Super Bowl way back when. The Jags are up next. Very curious as to what you think of this draft. Getting aggressive, trading up to number 2 for Travis Hunter in the first round. Then in the third round, Caleb Bransaw and Wyatt Milam. Bayshall Tootin and Jack Kaiser in the 4th. Jalen McLeod and Rayon Lane in the 6th. And then Jonah Monheim and LaQuint Allen there in the 7th. I gave the Jags... What did I give the Jaguars? Where's the letter J? Here it is. I gave them a B+. What did you give the Jags?
A-.
Okay.
Paid a big price. Is anyone ever going to care if Travis Hunter is the star we all think he's going to be?
Yeah.
No one's going to care when he's probably a star wide receiver, and I'm curious if they play him at some safety, slot, whatever they want to do with him on defense. Caleb Bransaw, speaking of slot player, Wyatt Milam's going to transition nicely to guard. Bayshall Tootin is the exact kind of lightning speed, explosiveness zone runner they needed. Jack Kaiser is an insanely instinctual, smart linebacker. Jalen McLeod, to me, is a guy that is his best work is done as an edge rusher. Let's get him with his hand in the dirt and let him rush off the edge instead of playing off the ball. Lane is an ideal special teamer in round 6. Jonah Monheim, I don't know if he'll ever have the play strength to actually play center in the NFL. We'll see. LaQuint Allen, pass catching back, insurance there for a backfield that's been banged up. They paid a big price, and you know what? Go bold in the draft. Make the draft electric is what the Jacksonville Jaguars wanted to do. Man, I was a big fan. I think this offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year.
I can't give this anything less than a B because, like I said with the Cleveland Browns, you got aggressive to go up and get who was, if there is a generational prospect in this class, Travis Hunter would be the first guy that I would name that has the best ability to do that. And so I can't hate you for being aggressive and going up to do that. The reason why I don't have this in the A range, though, is because Caleb Bransaw was heavily overdrafted from where I thought that he should have been on my big board. And I'm much lower on Bayshall Tootin than you are. But very clearly, This team wanted to get way faster, right? Travis Hunter, Caleb Bransaw, Bayshall Tootin, Jack Kaiser, Jalen McLeod, even Rayon Lane, like these are explosive football players. Team speed was the focus for the Jags. You see that theme when you look at their entire draft class. I was lower on a couple of those guys versus, where I thought that they should have been drafted and where I would have comfortably drafted them. But I think it's a good draft class, and I think the Jags got a lot faster on their roster all the way through.
Gladstone's quite the character, huh?
He is, man.
Uniquely positioned for this.
Did you listen to the speech afterwards? The Travis
when
Hunter
was
speech?
Sitting with him?
Yeah.
And I didn't know until they punched out. And then Travis Hunter's right next to him. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, brother.
Somebody was saying to me, like, either that quote is going to be on a plaque when you first walk into the building, or we're going to look back on it as like the cheesiest thing that he's ever said.
Yeah.
There's like no in between.
Right. He's like a blend of like dazed and confused in scouting. And like you said, Trevor, maybe a little cheesy at times, but I like their draft a lot, and I like the direction this organization is going in under him.
I'm very excited for Travis Hunter. I said this on the PFF Live show. It feels like when they had Jalen Ramsey. Like he feels like that kind. You remember when Ramsey was on this team? I mean, just the confidence everywhere.
Winning
was
plays.
Through the roof, man.
Mm-hmm.
They thought they were the baddest dudes on the planet, that 2017 Jaguars team, especially that defense. I think that Travis Hunter, not just in his ability, but also just who he is, can instill that type of confidence.
Yep.
I think the Jags can walk into any game and go, yeah, I mean, we got Travis. I mean, we could put up 40 points in this game because we have him, especially when you're pairing him with Brian Thomas Jr. So I'm excited for the Jags. I really am. Jets, your New York Jets. They go Armand Membu in the first round, pass up on Tyler Warren, but they get a tight end in the second and Mason Taylor. Azareye'h Thomas in the third, Arian Smith in the fourth, Malachi Moore in the fourth as well. Francis Mauoga, is that how you say his name? I think I better learn this.
Moinoa.
I better learn it pretty quick because I think his brother's going to be like a top 10 draft pick next year. And then Tyler Barron in the fifth round as well. I gave the Jets a B+.
Okay.
What did you give?
I gave them a B-, and you're always going to be a little harsher. I noticed this was with you at the Bucs, by the way.
Right.
You're naturally going to be a little harsher on the team you're close to, you've covered or cover. I thought the Jets, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji came out on fire in the first 2 days, and that's ultimately what's going to matter for this draft. And if you believe that, Armand Membu is going to be the long-term answer at right tackle, which I do. Mason Taylor, to me, is a little bit of jack of all trades at tight end rather than a master of one thing, but he's still growing into his body at 20 years old. And if you look at his bloodlines, you feel kind of good about that. And they need that sixth player on the line of scrimmage in Tanner Engstrand's offense. I loved Azareye'h Thomas. And I think if Aaron Glenn loved Azareye'h Thomas, you feel really good about that selection. I thought that was where they got value. Azareye'h is just extremely physical, tough, focused, another 20-year-old. It was weird. They took all these really young, high upside, but good floor prospects the first 2 days. Trevor, I just thought they lost the board on day 3, honestly. Arian Smith, even Barron, Moinoa. Malachi Moore I like at safety because I think he can kind of be that ball hawk, rangy, smart player on the back end for them. But the Jets had a really big need at defensive tackle next to Quinnen Williams. Their run defense last year, when Kinlaw was next to him, was dreadful. I did not like taking Arian Smith over Ty Robinson in that spot. Or go get a Jay Toya later in day 3. Get some kind of plugger. And they didn't do that. So that was my biggest gripe with them. But if we remember this Jets draft for the first 3 picks, I'm pretty confident those 3 guys are going to be key starters for this team within a year.
I agree. I think they hit a home run in the first 3 picks. I don't love what they did on day 3 at all whatsoever. I thought that Arian Smith was way overdrafted. I agree. I would have liked for them to go defensive tackle at some point. Barron, I think is fine as a football player, was drafted basically where I had him ranked. Malachi Moore is a little bit higher, but I think he could be an Aaron Glenn disciple type of a player like he was with Nick Saban. So those aren't the worst, but the Arian Smith one was wild to me.
That's a tough one because some people counter. They're like, well, it's day 3. You're getting hung up on a 4th round pick.
Not in the 4th round, though, especially when you need a defensive tackle.
You need it, or take a good wide receiver. Jalen Royals, Elikayo Manor. There was a lot of
getting picked over Royals is insane.
It's borderline egregious. But I had a B-. Like, I was always going to be tougher on them. You had the B+. So the first 3 picks, the Jets should be really excited about in our key areas.
And I do think that that's what matters most.
Right?
It does. Those first 3 picks.
And it's the curse of inheriting a roster that has been really thinned out. That you weren't going to fix. You weren't going to fix everything.
And to your point, it looks worse when you look at Ty Robinson, C.J. West, Joshua Farmer, Cam Jackson, Jordan Phillips. All of those players were still on the board when they picked Arian Smith.
That's my exact issue.
I think they could have picked Arian Smith with their last pick in the draft.
I'm very confident they could have. Yeah. It's a regime that they haven't turned over the college scouting department yet, and it was kind of the ghost of Jets' day 3 pass with the same department. Hopefully, if they can make changes with that department when they have more time over the next year, it'll improve over time.
Detroit Lions, Tyreek Williams in the first round, Tate Ratledge in the second, Isaac Tesla in the third, and Isaac Tesla, who they traded basically 3-round picks for, round 3 picks for, excuse me. Miles Frazier in the 5th, Ahmed Hassan in the 6th, Dan Jackson in the 7th, Dominic Lovett in the 7th. I gave the Detroit Lions a B+. They gave up a 3rd rounder this year and 2 3rd rounders next year to go get Isaac Tesla. And I wrote this B+ grade before I realized that I thought that they were going to get a comp pick back for Aaron Glenn. And apparently that's one of the ones they traded. Because he was a minority coordinator and he goes to be a head coach. So the NFL awards you a 3rd round draft pick when that happens. So I was thinking to myself, okay, they traded a 3rd round pick this year, a 3rd round pick next year, and a 3rd round pick next year to move up to make this happen. But they believe that they're getting a 3rd round pick back for Aaron Glenn. So I was thinking it was just a 3rd rounder next year to move up, but that's not the case. They have already traded the 3rd round pick that they will be awarded for Aaron Glenn. So they're not getting one back. So I could say that this draft is more of like a B- because of that, because of learning that.
Yeah, I gave it an A-, but no one should be surprised. You could have been watching the draft and you'd think I was just on the shoulders of Dan Campbell pressing buttons in the war room at this point. Like,
yeah,
Tyreek Williams in the 1st round, just brawn, just, obviously sheer power. Him and Aleem McNeil. This is a conference that you got to stop the run if you want to be one of the big dogs. Him and Aleem McNeil together is going to be something to see. I love Tate Ratledge and Miles Frazier. I had them. Tate Ratledge was in my top 50. Miles Frazier was in my top 100. So that's what decided this draft for me. I actually wonder if they're going to play Tesla on the outside, even though he played the slot at Arkansas.
They're going to let him block his ass off, let me tell you, because of the way that they talked about him post-draft press conference, which I love. I was higher on Tesla than you were. I had him at 111.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is one I miss on, honestly. I was looking at him as this like really unique, explosive kind of project power slot, and I think the league just has bigger plans for him due to the way he was limited in that offense. Andrew Armstrong didn't get drafted either, by the way, which I'm floored by. But yeah, I like the Lions draft a lot. I love the identity that they have established with their organization. They are like one of the handful of teams that we've discussed that they get players that fit what they're really good at, and they continue to replenish what they need.
Yeah. I think that I love the players that they drafted. Just like 3 3rd-round picks for Teslas.
No, that's a really good call out by you. That's steep.
A lot. But I do love the players. So, I don't know, B- to a B+, somewhere within there. I'll say B- just because it's steep to give that up for a player like that. But if Tesla works out for them, then obviously it's great. But I love Miles Frazier and Ahmed Hassan. And is he?
I'm pretty sure Tesla's a Michigan kid, so that was kind of a cool moment of the draft.
Oh, nice. I also sneaky Dane Jackson fan over here. I like Dane Jackson.
Yeah, that was they
got a lot. They got a little bit of value there for Dane Jackson.
Yes, they did. They did that twice. I'm going back to their draft as I scrolled away from it. They had 2. So they took Lovett, obviously at the end there, to pack up slot receiver, and then when you look at Jackson, he, walk-on scout team, part-time player, full-time player, special teamer. And really good, like good tester. That's the kind of guy that hangs at the back end of your roster with a 7th round pick.
All right, who's next? Packers.
Oh,
Green Bay Packers.
Jump scare.
Everybody's favorite. Matthew Golden in the 1st. By the way, the crowd pop when they announced it was Matthew Golden was just an unbelievable moment of the draft. I love that so much. The half cheer when they're like, for the first time since 2002.
That was well done.
They draft wide receiver and the crowd like kind of goes nuts, and then they say Matthew Golden. Everybody's like, yeah. They just
awesome.
Lose their mind. That was Green Bay, man. Holy shit! What an awesome setting that was.
Amazing setting.
That looked incredible, man.
Amazing setting. Obviously, just a football city, town, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It was set up. The scene looked awesome. Obviously, the fans showed out. The environment leading up to it was really cool.
Shout out to the fans of Green Bay for making that really cool, even to watch on the other side of the television. Matthew Golden in the first, Anthony Belton in the second, Savion Williams the third, Barron Sorrell in the fourth, Colin Oliver the fifth, Warren Brinson in the sixth, Micah Robinson in the seventh, and then John Williams in the seventh as well. I gave the Green Bay Packers a B. I think that Matthew Golden is a perfect fit for what Jordan Love wants to do as a quarterback, and I genuinely think that he could be wide receiver 1 for them. I like Belton. Sort of not sure where he plays.
Right.
Like I don't really know what the Packers are doing on the offensive line now. You know, you sign Aaron Banks when I felt like, okay, you kind of didn't really need to, and then you draft Anthony Belton. So I'm like, okay, now I don't really. Are you taking away from a free agency signing? Are you worried about somebody else on the offensive line? Packers fans, let us know in the comments. I did really like the Sorrell and Colin Oliver selections. I thought those guys are going to be excellent on that defensive line, even if they are like designated certain defensive linemen. I think those are good football players. But I give them a B. What'd you give the Packers?
I gave them a C. The Packers are always weird drafters, and there's times where they'll make you look incredibly stupid for your post-draft thoughts because they get more out of a player that you wouldn't expect it from, and there's times where they overthink slots and they don't really care, and it doesn't work out. Matthew Golden I thought was a second-round wide receiver, a number 2, but it's in this draft, it was fine, right? Like, would I have loved if Emeka Egbuka or T-Mac McMillan fell to them? Yeah, but that's not how the draft worked. So they took the next guy in Golden. I have to stand on business. Like, I think Jaden Higgins is a better receiver prospect than Matthew Golden. So that hurt this grade. And obviously, I don't think the NFL did. Matthew Golden was always going in the first round. So I'm going against consensus, and that's fine. You don't want to make a living doing that, but Belton was a completely fine pick. He kind of profiles with his build as a guard, but he does have length. Speed rushers will get him, but he's such a fascinating prospect on the offensive line because of his sheer power, his hip power. Savion Williams is probably the pick I liked the least.
It's just a bet, man. You know, it's
at
just
87 though.
I mean,
he's not a receiver to me. He's not. He doesn't catch the ball well.
I mean, you got him at 193 in your rankings. I have him at 101, so this is close enough for me. I thought this was fine.
He's a wildcat weapon to me. So, and I like what they do with Jaden Reed in certain looks already. So I didn't really get that pick. I like the Colin Oliver pick quite a bit because the 2 games he played before he got hurt this year, the move to edge as a situational rusher at the NFL looked like it's going to work. He could just get off the ball and go and create havoc. So I'm really excited about that one. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a typical Packers draft where, there's some things I just don't align with. It wasn't terrible by any means. I think Golden will be fine. I think ultimately, though, they'll still be searching for that high-end number 1 wide receiver down the road.
Panthers went Ted McMillan at number 8 overall. Surprised us all there.
They
Adams there.
Got our ass.
Nick Gordon in the second, Princely Umanmielen in the third, Trevor Etienne in the fourth, Lathan Ransom in the fourth, Cameron Jackson in the fifth, Mitchell Evans in the fifth, and Jimmy Horn in the sixth. Connor, this is tied for the highest grade that I gave.
Yeah, same. Close.
I gave the Carolina Panthers an A+ in this draft. I mean, they could not have done better. I don't think that they could have done better. Getting Tetron McMillan changes this offense drastically, in my opinion, if he is that wide receiver 1 that we believe that he could be. You drafted 2 great pass rushers, one of them who wins with a great pass rush plan in Princely in Nick Gordon, and the other one who has some of the best bend and first step explosiveness in the class in Princely Umanmielen. And even if he is just a designated pass rusher, you don't have to think about him like you're picking him in the first round. They picked him at 77. So this is an excellent designated pass rusher right there. Trevor Etienne, I think, is probably long-term RB2 on this team. With Jonathan Brooks having back-to-back ACL injuries, I think Lathan Ransom could legitimately be the starter. Opposite Trayvon Merrick, Cameron Jackson's excellent in the middle to play with even more strength on those early downs in the run game. Mitchell Evans, I think, could be tight end 2 for this team behind Jatavian Evans. I really do think that they got starters or contributing players with every single pick, round 1 through 6. This is an A+ draft for me.
It was an A- for me. It's a phenomenal draft. The McMillan pick was perfect in my opinion. Nick Gordon, I thought was a top 20 player. They got him at 51. That's a slam dunk. Cam Jackson in the 5th round, I had him at 88. They got him at 140. I thought he was one of the best run defending nose tackles in the draft. Princely, right where I had him, really gifted pass rusher. Ransom, I'm with you all the way. I had him at 111. I think he could be a starting strong safety. Mitchell Evans, depth tight end. Jimmy Horn, depth wide receiver. Literally the only thing keeping this draft from an A, I didn't give out any A pluses this year. The only thing keeping this draft from an A minus is I did not like Trevor Etienne. I didn't see him as anything more than an RB3 in the league. They took him at 114. I thought there was a lot of better running backs on the board. I'm not going to get hung up over one pick we saw differently here with the Panthers, but just to, kind of show the analysis with him. He's small. He didn't get a lot of usage. He's a zone runner only. He fumbled on just 154 touches. He's got quick feet, but he's not somebody that to me is a difference maker at all. It's fine. It's a running back. It is what it is. They wanted a smaller, shiftier, straight line speed kind of guy. But I thought the Panthers crushed this draft outside of that pick and got starter after starter after starter. And the volume they got in this draft was up there with any other team.
I think Trevor Etienne's a flash player. I don't think he's a full-time player, but that's all you need him to be with Chuba Hubbard. Like, He can be the receiving back and he can be the flashy player for you, and that's why I'm okay with that one a little bit more than you. But Panthers, excellent draft. I didn't do this on purpose, but we got the Patriots next. Will Campbell in the first round, Travion Henderson in the second, Kyle Williams in the third, Jared Wilson in the third, Craig Woodson and Joshua Farmer in the fourth, Braden Swinson in the fifth. No idea how. Andreas Borregales in the sixth, Marcus Bryant, Julian Ashby, Kobe Minor. Connor, I said that the Panthers were tied for the highest grade. I also gave the New England Patriots an A+. I just absolutely love their draft. I was sitting here having to talk about Joshua Farmer. I was like, whoa, okay, I don't know about him in like the second or third round like some people are thinking about, but fourth round, great young player to take a chance on. Craig Woodson, I think, can be a really good rotational, perhaps even a starting safety for them at some point. Jared Wilson, getting him where they did, I thought was excellent to play at the center spot. Kyle Williams, perfect value for where I had him on the board. Genuinely believe he could be an impact wide receiver for them. Travion Henderson's a really nice smash and dash with Ramondre Stevenson. Will Campbell, we both love Will Campbell there. And then especially getting Braden Swinson like 100 spots after where I had him ranked as a great pass rusher behind Harold Landry and for the future. I thought this draft, I might be tying the offseason in together with the Patriots when I say A+, but what they did in free agency, and then complementing that with what they did in the draft. Just beautiful, in my opinion. An incredible first offseason from Mike Vrabel. And this one was an A+ for me, given what they needed and the players they got.
I gave this a B in my written article, and I'm kind of getting away from it. It's definitely a B+ here. The more I dive in and look at where I had players. My lingering question with New England is, I will stand by. I don't think Will Campbell is a long-term franchise left tackle. I think he could be an all-pro caliber guard. They are going to play him at left tackle. They used the top 5 pick on him to be a left tackle. We'll see how that goes. That's my biggest question. But you needed speed on offense. You got Travion Henderson and Kyle Williams. You needed an upgrade at center or a future upgrade at center. You got Jared Wilson, who is one of the most athletic centers. We'll see. Play strength needs to go up, but so much athleticism. I liked Craig Woodson. Joshua Farmer was great value for their defensive line. Swinson was the steal of this class. I think he's a really, really talented, heavy-handed edge that just understands how to use his length. So, yeah, this was a good draft for the Patriots. I just still have questions about the long-term tackle situation on both sides for this team, because Morgan Moses is a good stopgap signing, but he is hurt a lot at his age and getting to the end. And I don't think Campbell's a left tackle, but everything they did in between that was really, really high level stuff. So I think I was off in the written part. It's at least a B+ for me.
Yeah, and I think that the Campbell evaluation certainly goes into it. I think he can play tackle. At least I would certainly want him to play tackle, and if not, I think he's an all-pro type of guard for you. So I just love that player there. The Raiders, Ashton Genty in the first round, Jack Beck in the second, Darian Porter in the third, Caleb Rogers in the third, and Charles Grant in the third. Deontay Thornton in the fourth, along with Tonka Hemingway. J.J. Pegues in the sixth, Tommy Millott in the sixth, Cam Miller in the sixth, which is hilarious because Tommy Millott and Cam Miller went up against each other in the FCS National Championship game, which North Dakota State ended up winning. And then Cody Lindenberg there, the linebacker from Minnesota, in the seventh. You sort of teased it earlier in the show, what the Raiders are doing. John Spytek, I thought, had an excellent first draft as a general manager there. I gave the Las Vegas Raiders an A for this draft. High influx of talent in this draft. Good bets to make, especially the athletes, right? Like Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant. Are they Finished products? No, but great athletes there. J.J. Pegues the same way. Tommy Millott, just an unreal athlete, transitioning from the quarterback position to that wide receiver position. Dante Thornton, I think, is a great vertical stretching wide receiver that is perfect for this team, especially when you throw Jack Besh in there with Brock Bowers and with Jacoby Myers. Now they have the long speed threat with Dante Thornton. Ideally, I think Darian Porter is perfect for a Pete Carroll defensive scheme as an off-coverage, cover three type of corner who can play with some length as well when he's near the line of scrimmage. And then obviously Ashton Genty is Ashton Genty. I think he's a takeover, offense-changing type of a player, even while playing running back. I love this draft. I thought SpyTech did excellent.
I echo everything you said. I gave it an A-. This draft ruled. It was awesome. SpyTech showed he's run drafts or helped run drafts in Tampa for a while, and he showed the bright lights were not too bright for him at all. And Pete Carroll's influence was on this draft as well. I thought the cohesion between the two was phenomenal. They got value on so many picks in this draft for me. I mean, plus value by far on Besh, Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant. There was a couple more too. J.J. Pegues was another value for me in that spot. The look at this offense is phenomenal. I mean, there's a world, once again, where they might have the best tight end and the best running back in football 2 to 3 years from now. Charles Grant, I think, could develop into a starting tackle for them. Caleb Rogers, I think, could be important guard depth. Darian Porter is just a freakish size speed athlete, a corner that's a special teams demon. Besh is potentially their best receiver pretty quickly. They got vertical stretch threat in Thornton. Hemingway and Pegues depth up front. We'll see if Tommy Millott can transition to slot receiver. Huge fan of what this team did. Cannot wait to watch this offense specifically.
Before we get to the next team, what's your child's future success look like for all the parents out there? Maybe it's them traveling the world, it's them owning their own business. Whatever that looks like, you can help them achieve that with a kids investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to manage your family's financial paths. With the kids investment account from Fabric, you guys can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but this kids investment account allows you to invest on their behalf, gives their investments more time to grow. Whole thing is online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes. Then you manage the whole thing right from your phone. Funds can be used for anything: tuition, tutors, sports, music classes. And then when they're adults, maybe it is you helping them start their own business or travel the world or whatever that may be. Starts you at $20, no contribution limits to it. Tax advantages, and funds are SIPC insured up to $500,000. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/stock exchange. That's meetfabric.com/stock exchange, MEET fabric.com/stock exchange. Portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. Los Angeles Rams, smaller class here for the Rams. They got Terrence Ferguson in the second round because they traded out of the first round, gaining a first-round pick while doing so. So even though on the flip side I said, I can understand the Falcons paid a lot to do it, I certainly like it a lot for the Los Angeles Rams, who gained an extra first-round pick next year. They took Terrence Ferguson in the second round, Josiah Stewart in the third, Jarquez Hunter in the fourth, Ty Hamilton in the fifth, Chris Paul Jr. in the fifth as well, and then Kanata Mumfield in the seventh. My boy, had him 169 on my board, and he goes 244. I think that was good value for them to get them there. I gave this Rams draft a B+, especially when you take into account gaining a first-round pick next year. What'd you give them, Connor?
So with that context, I gave them an A. Now, just the haul, I gave a C+. I wanted to be really fair. Like in the article, I was like, it's just about the haul. The players as the haul are a C+. But when you trade away your first-round pick for a future first-rounder, that's a huge factor that didn't count. When you count that, I wrote, this is an A for Les Snead. He robbed the Falcons in that trade back. Terrence Ferguson was it's crazy. I thought I was the biggest Terrence Ferguson fan. I thought this was a little bit of a reach, but he's right. I was like the meme. Like I was like, Terrence Ferguson, top 50. Good for you, man. I thought I was the only one that loved you like that. So a great scheme fit for McVay, just a little early. Josiah Stewart, though, if you flip these picks, it's perfect. I had Stewart at 52. They got him at 90. I had Ferguson at 90. They got him at 46. Jarquez Hunter, okay. I mean, they like these smash mouth downhill running backs. Ty Hamilton's an interesting player because of his explosiveness off the ball. Chris Paul Jr., sub-package linebacker with range. They just didn't have a lot of assets, Trevor, that were early, that it would be impossible to get that kind of big grade. But if you factor the trade, this is an A. I thought they robbed the Falcons blind.
Yeah, I think that certainly with the trade, it makes this a lot better. I think the Ferguson pick was fine, overdrafted, but fine. They wanted a tight end very clearly. Josiah Stewart's good value. I like their final 3 picks. I like Ty Hamilton. I love Chris Paul Jr., and I love Kanata Mumfield. Jarquez Hunter, good football player. I just think it's kind of redundant. Like, you already have that on your roster, right? You already have Kyron Williams. You already have Blake Corum.
Right. Do they not like
Cody
Blake
Schrader.
Corum? Who knows?
So that one was just sort of redundant for me, but I think it was a fine class that's propped up by them getting an extra first-round pick.
Huge.
Look, honestly, though, Chris Paul is excellent for them. Look what they were able to do with Omar Spates last year. Undrafted free agent who became a starting linebacker for them. Chris Paul Jr. played with so much patience and high IQ this past year. I bet he could be a starter for them as a 5th-rounder, which is awesome to say. And then, man, look out for Kanata Mumfield.
Yeah.
I think they saw him and the flashes that he was as a route runner. I think he can make this team, and I think he could be somebody who's a good depth player for them. I really do. I think he might be something. Ravens, Malachi Starks in the 1st, Mike Green in the 2nd, Emory Jones in the 3rd, Teddy Buchanan in the 4th, Carson Vincent in the 5th, a handful of 6th-round picks, Bilal Cohn, Tyler Loop, LeJonte Wester, Aeneas Peebles, Robert Longerbeam, and then Garrett Dellinger in the 7th. I gave the Baltimore Ravens, where are we at here with the Ravens? I gave the Ravens an A. I thought they got great value for their first 2 picks in Malachi Starks and Mike Green. Obviously, everything that happened with Mike Green is a lot of off-the-field stuff, so whatever happens with that, whatever they figure out, whatever goes on after the draft, I'm not sure. But for where I had the player ranked on the field, certainly if they get a guy who is able to play, I mean, he is somebody who is a phenomenal football player. I thought they hit a lot of needs, too. Like Emory Jones, overdrafted from where I had him on the board, but as a guard, he's what the Ravens want. He's what they gravitate towards. Speed at linebacker with Teddy Buchanan. Carson Vincent he looks like he's built in a lab type of an offensive tackle that you take a bet on in the 5th. I think Bilal Cohn's actually really good value for them as a depth cornerback. LeJonte Wester's a good player. Aeneas Peebles, great value there. Robert Longerbeam, I think, could be a starting slot someday. Maybe not for the Ravens because it feels like their secondary stacked, but I think he's got that kind of change of direction ability. So I like all the players that the Ravens brought in here, and they got plus value at the very top. So I gave them an A.
A- from me. Baltimore knows how to crush value and fix their problems. Problems on defense, get reliability on the back end. Malachi Starks brings that. Get pure pass rush up front. Mike Green brings that. Teddy Buchanan, impressive athletic linebacker that goes from Cal Poly to Cal and really developed under that staff. Carson Vincent, a good developmental tackle for them that they can stash for a year or two before he has to play. You brought up Bilal Coney. He's somebody that kind of has the size that they're looking for at the position. LeJonte Wester, nice little Zay Flowers insurance policy. I think Aeneas Peebles is just a pass rush artist, man. Like, he's an outlier with size and lack of athleticism, but he just knows how to get through blockers, and I would bet on him making their rotation. So Baltimore, they understand the pre-draft process with compensatory picks, and they understand value and how the board will break during the draft. A-, one of my favorite classes.
It was a very Baltimore Ravens-y type of draft, it felt like, throughout. Saints went with Kelvin Banks Jr. in the 1st, Tyler Shuck in the 2nd, Vernon Broughton in the 3rd, Jonas Sanker in the 3rd, Danny Stutzman in the 4th, Quincy Riley in the 4th, Devin Neal in the 6th, Molokai Matavao in the 7th, and then Fidel Diggs in the 7th. I gave this a C+, Connor.
Yeah.
What did you give them?
I gave it a C because at the end of the day, what do you think this draft is going to be judged off of, Trevor?
Well, Tyler Shuck.
There you go. Now, there's players I like. Kelvin Banks, I was a big Kelvin Banks guy. I think this line is heading in the right direction. They've taken 2 of my guys the last 2 years, of Fuanga and now Banks. Broughton can be disruptive. Obviously, Sanker can help your run defense as a safety. So can Stutzman at linebacker. Riley in 2023 was really good in man coverage. This year, he wasn't the same player while he was dealing with an ankle injury.
Sanker through Neal were good picks. Sanker, Stutzman, Riley, Neal, I think were good picks for this team.
I don't know what the plan is at quarterback for this team. You have an injured starter in Derek Carr, and you took a very injured 25-year-old at the 40th overall pick. It's just, I can't get by that when evaluating this class. You're not just accumulating players. You have to have some kind of team-building process here, and the Saints got a lot of solid players, but I like I said with the Giants, so the Giants draft was way better. I just don't think Shuck is the long-term answer. As a starter, he was a exciting backup fringe starter, not the answer.
I thought Shuck was a massive overdraft.
Massive.
Especially as QB3 in this draft.
Yeah.
Vernon Broughton, I like as a football player. I think he's fine, but they picked him one pick before Landon Jackson, which was very puzzling because he's basically the same player that Landon Jackson is, except Landon Jackson's just better. They also had Jordan Birch on the board if you wanted an athlete sort of similar inside-out type of a defensive lineman. And then if you wanted a pass rusher, Princely Umanmielen was still on the board. So I didn't love the value of where Vernon Broughton was taken, and I don't love the players that they picked him over at similar positions.
Yeah.
So Shuck is tough. Vernon Broughton is tough when you look at it like that. Like I said, Sanker through Neal I like, and then the 7th rounders are the 7th rounders. But I did like Banks. So ultimately, I gave this one a C+. I do think their offensive line does get a lot better with Kelvin Banks at left tackle, Talize Fuanga switching to right. Now you could hopefully kick Trevor Penning inside where he could be a lot better. But the Shuck and Broughton picks were tough. Were tough for me. Seattle Seahawks, Gray Zabel in the first round, Nicky Manwari in the second, Elijah Arroyo in the second, Jalen Milroe in the third, and then on day 3, Riley Mills in the 5th, Torrey Horton in the 5th, Robbie Utes in the 5th, Bryce Cabledew in the 6th, Damian Martinez in the 7th, Mason Richmond in the 7th, and then Ricky White in the 7th as well. I gave the Seahawks an A.
Whoa!
I thought the Seahawks had really good value and really good bets to make. When you look at Eman Wari, I think that was the one where I would have gone like, okay, that was much higher. You know, like they drafted Eman Wari 35th. He's 67th on my board. He was 48th for you. But I put Eman Wari 26th on the Seahawks team-specific board. Because of places that I would have liked Eman Wari to go, this was one of the preferred destinations with Mike McDonald. So I am actually pretty good with that. John Schneider said that they almost traded back into the first round to go get Nicky Manwari. So not doing that and waiting on it a little bit, getting him in the second round, I think was good. They traded a 3rd rounder to do that, so I think you take that into account as well. But again, this is at least one of the spots that I really liked for them. I think that Bryce Cabledew could actually be an interior starter for them, potentially. And then I loved Horton and Arroyo as those big wide receivers that they took bets on, one at the tight end spot and then one as a wide receiver. I thought that was really good value for both of those guys, especially with where they were going. And then Jalen Milroe, I think is a good bet to make. So I think that this was a draft outside of Zabel and Arroyo, really. I think it was a draft of a lot of bets that I really like the bets. I think that this team, John Schneider and Mike McDonald, really identified what their roster is, what they do well, and which players to make bets on as the draft went on. So I thought they navigated this very well. I gave the Seahawks an A.
I gave them a B-. I will say it's funny. They came out in round 1 and took one of the safer picks in round 1 in Gray Zabel.
They did.
And then they swung for the fences. Pick after pick after pick, it felt like.
Did you see Zabel's quote?
No.
After he got drafted, they had like a conference call, with like beat reporters or whatever, and one of the beat reporters is like, "Hey, so what are you gonna do after that?" And Gray Zabel's like, "Shoot, man, I don't know, probably get into these bush lights."
Yeah, I did see that. That was great. That was great. He's such a dude's dude.
What a king.
Such a dude's dude. Yeah, that's a slam dunk pick. So then, Eman Wari, I just have concerns about the run defense. It's got to be taken up a couple notches. McDonald should be the guy with the plan for him. Arroyo, when healthy, is a huge difference maker at tight end when healthy. Milroe, I loved at that spot. And then it's a lot of depth options. I think Torrey Horton can be a steal for this team at wide receiver, and they need wide receiver help. It's just going to be interesting to see the boom or bust factor for those 2 round 2 picks and the round 3 pick with Jalen Milroe.
I love the Arroyo pick, so I'm all in on that one. Eman Wari, obviously, I thought that was a good spot. And honestly, I want to shout out Ricky White because a lot of people were talking about Ricky White as like a 4th or 5th round wide receiver. I didn't see that. But to get him in the 7th, this is somebody who can be a special teams ace for you.
Man. Yep.
Has blocked punts before. He could be a kick returner.
This year.
He could be a punt returner. Like this dude, what an excellent special teams weapon to get in the 7th round.
4 block punts this year. That's a pretty remarkable stat.
Yeah. Pittsburgh Steelers. Defensive tackle Derek Harmon in the 1st, Caleb Johnson in the 3rd, Jack Sawyer in the 4th, Yaya Black in the 5th, Will Howard in the 6th, Carson Bruner in the 7th, and then Dante Kent in the 7th as well. I threw acquiring DK Metcalf into this.
Okay, I did not.
And so I gave them a B+ because I think that Derek Harmon is a great predecessor to Cam Hayward. I think he makes their defensive line a lot better. Even with me being lower on Derek Harmon, I think that this avenue was the right pick for them. Kenneth Grant's off the board. Walter Nolan's off the board. Mason Graham's off the board. I can understand them going with Derek Harmon here at 21. I think that Caleb Johnson, I was hesitant on Caleb Johnson. He was lower for me than I felt like he was on other people's boards. But in an Arthur Smith offense,
right,
perfect.
That was the place for him.
Absolutely perfect. Don't really love Jack Sawyer and Yaya Black. I don't know how big of impact players you're getting there. Will Howard's a nice quarterback to bet on and have as a depth player there for you. But throwing in DK Metcalf, I gave it a B+. Outside of DK Metcalf edition, probably something like a B-.
Yeah, I give it a B without counting Metcalf. Harmon, perfect fit and a popular mock draft choice for them for the reasons you said. Caleb Johnson, I thought was really good value. I had him at 59. I think he's just tailor-made for this scheme. We've had jokes with Jack Sawyer. They still got value on that pick for me. I still think he could
Fourth round, yeah, it's fine.
I still think he could be a hard-nosed edge setter for them. Yaha Black kind of beefens up the middle of your run defense again. Will Howard, I think, will be a reliable backup. Carson Bruner is not just a story with his dad being a scout there. He could be a real special teams player for you, as can Dante Kent. So
that is cool, though.
Yeah, it's really cool. So sturdy draft for the Steelers and a B for me.
Texans, your draft here.
I actually ran this draft room for a couple picks.
They trade down with the New York Giants from pick number 25 to pick number 34. They pick up, 2 second-round picks? What did they pick up for this?
The Giants, 2 threes?
2 third-round picks.
Yeah, it wasn't too heavy of a price.
Yeah, 2 third-round picks to move up to 25, and the Texans moving back to 34. They took Jaden Higgins in the second round, then Ariante Ursary in the second round, Jalen Noel in the third round to reunite the Cyclone duo, Jalen Smith in the third round, Woody Marks in the fourth, then in the sixth, Jalen Reed and Graham Mertz, then in the seventh, Keontae Hamilton and your boy Luke Lachey. So what'd you think of this one? I gave the Texans a B. What did you give them?
Me too, because it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I like this collection of players for the most part, but I'm still worried about your offensive line, even after getting Ursary. So that,
who I have questions of myself anyways.
Right, there's fair to have questions about Ursary, and he's not going to be a one-man fix-it, even if he hits. Jalen Smith was way earlier than I expected. I guess they really like him in the slot. I wasn't as confident in him being a long-term starter.
So was Woody Marks for me.
Woody Marks, they get us that pass-catching back. It was a little early, but his role. Higgins,
I at least think the role was open. You're right.
Yeah, the role makes sense. Higgins and Noel, I think, are going to be a slam dunk for this team, as people know. I think they could have the best trio of wide receivers, in the conference. Trio is important here, not duo, because there's obviously a lot of reasons for that. Not only with, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but now Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. are going to be an amazing duo. There's a lot of good duos in the AFC, but those three across the board with Nico Collins and the Iowa State guys is going to be really impressive with C.J. Stroud. It just always goes back to, I don't trust this offensive line right now, but it's a B for me. Good collection of players.
This secondary is nuts.
Oh, it's
all
silly.
The players that they've brought in.
It's silly.
They draft Jalen Reed, and Jalen Reed's like running third line with the safeties.
Jalen Reed is learn special teams, buddy. Like, that's how deep this team is, which is fine. He's a good athlete for that. It's actually a better role for him right now anyway.
They have so many secondary players to lean on, and so I like the addition of both of the wide receivers. I'm worried about Ursary just overall as a player. I think he explodes well. That first step explosiveness is there for him, but a little bit shorter arms, a little bit of a waist bender. I think he's got to get more flexible.
He does bend.
Get this dude. He's got to do goat yoga this summer. That's what he's got to get into. We got to get this guy more flexible.
Goat yoga.
Yeah. It's where like you do yoga, but then there's just a bunch of like little goats that are like walking around.
I feel like I've seen content of this and whatever works for people.
I've never done it, but I always like referencing it.
I've never stretched ever. This is me for a pickup basketball game now. Yeah.
Just a little bit of this, just warm up the rear delts a little bit.
I jump in the squat rack.
Get me right.
My warm up is I walk my dog and we run a little bit, and then I get home and jump into the rack.
And then you just
at 40 years old, I will not be able to walk. Good plan.
Tennessee Titans, they obviously went with Cam Ward at number 1 overall. Oluwafemi Oladejo in the second. Kevin Winston in the third. Chimere Dike in the fourth. Gunnar Helm in the 4th, and then Elikai Omaner in the 4th at 136.
Crazy.
An absolute crime against humanity. Jackson Slater in the 5th. Marquise Harris at number 6, or in the 6th round, and then Khalil Mullings in the 6th round as well. Weird draft.
This is a roller coaster draft to a T.
I gave them a B.
Okay.
Because you take Cam Ward. Okay, great, fine. Oladejo is risky over Princely Umanmielen, Braden Swinson, Josiah Stewart. All of those guys you could have picked at this point. Kevin Winston Jr. and Elikai Omaner are just unbelievable value, in my opinion. Chimere Dike was, even as a Florida Gator, like, I liked him when he was at Florida. I cannot believe he got drafted in the 4th round.
I was shocked.
Gunnar Helm, I'm a little bit, especially because your boy Elijah Badger went undrafted.
Right, who actually,
undrafted.
Elijah Badger catches the ball. That's the difference between him and DK.
Did you see Xavier Restrepo got signed here as a UDFA?
To Tennessee, right?
Yeah,
which is like
Cam.
chef's kiss.
Apparently, Cam was like calling the GM. It was like, it's like 6th and 7th round. He's like, draft him. That
is Cam's guy. Cam,
yeah.
He's got his guys back, which is cool.
So again, I think risky on Olufemi Oladejo, who we were much lower on, it felt like, than the NFL was going to be. Well, but go ahead.
How about Nick
grade?
Scorton going 51st and then Oladejo going 52nd?
Yeah, it's the ones that get away. Yeah.
So I gave it a B+. I think Cam Ward is going to be their franchise quarterback. And I
don't know how much credit I give them for Cam Ward.
Yeah, but you still have to factor it in.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like,
no,
right,
I know.
You did what you were supposed to do.
They didn't get a B+ because they took Cam Ward. They got a B+ because they took Kevin Winston Jr.
Yeah,
40 spot value for me. They took Elikai Omaner, a massive value. It was like a 70 spot value for me. And those were my favorite picks. Oladejo, DK, I have some concerns there, but I think Cam Ward is going to be the franchise quarterback here, and I think Io Manor is going to develop into one of his go-to targets within the next 2 years.
I think Kevin Winston Jr. is a starter at safety.
He's awesome.
I think Elikai Omaner is wide receiver 2 for this team sooner rather than later. Gunnar Helm, I don't know. I really don't know what to believe with the combine numbers, but
I know. And
at least you're taking him in the 4th round.
The Callahans are basically starting from scratch with him as a blocker, which is good people to be coaching you, but you actually have to do it. So
Jackson Slater's probably a center-only guy because of the lack of length, but we'll see how he can fit within this offensive line. Khalil Mullings, I think, is good for them. I think he's a powerful running back to have in that room. I think he could be RB3.
He's different than what they have, yeah.
Minnesota Vikings, the final team here. Donovan Jackson in the 1st round, Ty Felton in the 3rd, Terrion Ingram Dawkins in the 5th, Kobe King in the 6th, and then Gavin Bartholomew in the 6th. Connor, I gave this one a C. I gave the Vikings a C, and the reason why I did is because of 2 things. They did not trade down from number 24 when there was a lot of evidence that they could have, with the Houston Texans trading back the pick after them and gaining 2 extra 3rd-round picks, as well as the Rams getting a 1st from the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know if the Falcons just didn't call the Vikings or not,
right.
But if they called the Vikings and said, "Hey, we'll give you a 1st-round pick," because Lord knows they would have offered a 1st-round pick because they offered it to the team 2 picks later. So if this actually happens and they pass that up for Donovan Jackson, I understand that Donovan Jackson sort of finalizes their offensive line as one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. But man, I just look at those 2 teams that traded back and felt like that should have been the Vikings to do that. And then the other one is, you didn't have a lot of picks in this draft.
Right.
And with your 3rd-round pick, you drafted Ty Felton.
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
What, like, for what?
Why did you do that? I just don't. I don't get that one. I do not get that one. Terrion Ingram Dawkins, I like. Kobe King is fine. Gavin Bartholomew is fine. But that's my gripe with the Vikings draft.
Yeah, once again, for the last time, because it's the last team, I grade on hauls. And not what value did they get when they traded their future picks away. It's a C- because it's a 1-player class, in my opinion. It's Donovan Jackson. Kobe King, I do really like. They got insane value.
I do too. I think Kobe King is
but
good.
he just might be a base down or like special team or rotational kind of thumper. I know people really like Ty Felton. He's a great dude. He works really hard. He's got awesome speed. He does not have NFL play strength for me right now.
Also, where does he play?
I don't know.
Also, where's he playing? Where's he playing on this team? You have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, you have Jalen Naylor.
I guess they're thinking
And you have Rondale Moore. You brought in Rondale Moore. Where does Ty Felton play?
They think he's going to be the 3 in the future, but yeah, Donovan Jackson will fit like a glove on this offensive line perfectly. It's just that you didn't have a lot of picks, which is, you nailed it, Trevor. Like that's your own doing. So that's why it factors into the grade. You're the reason you don't have a lot of picks here. Now, the good news is the Vikings have one of the best coaching staffs in football. They're an excellent football team. They're going to be fine. It's just a draft where you walk away, and it's a little surprising for an analytical approach from Kwesi that this is kind of how they ended up with limited swings.
We would love to hear from you. Let us know what you thought of your team's haul. Give us your team's haul's grade. Tell us the team, tell us the grade, and give us the reason why. This community is a community full of draft addicts, which means that we know that you guys got takes. We obviously give you ours. We would love to hear from you as well. Best way to do that, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. Get in on the comments. Get in on the Addict family. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. The fun does not end here. We have episodes for you throughout the entire summer. We'll dive into 2026 and their class is summer scouting at some point, but we would love to have you rocking with us. We had a lot of new people who were here hanging out with us for in the comments section and in the chat for a lot of these shows that they did. Subscribe to the channel, become part of the Addicts family. We would love to keep rocking with you. You could also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Connor J. Rogers, at Tampa Bay Trey, also at NFLSE Show on those platforms. TikTok there as well for the show. Come hang out with us on Arena. We are presented by the Arena app, the Arena Sports app. It is the sports super app that combines DFS, a social media platform, all the sports news that you want, and we're having exclusive NFLSE content over there. So go follow us over there. We will follow you back on our individual accounts. We're trying to grow the Addicts and the Addict family there on that app. So go check it out. Type in Arena Sports, and you'll be able to see that when you sign up. You also get the offer to have a $200 deposit match if you want to get in the DFS game, which I think that you should. Connor, anything else before we get out of here?
A sweet farewell to a lovely draft class, man. It was a lot of fun, previewing these groups, talking about these players, now talking about their landing spots. We'll do some more rookie stuff, obviously, next year, as Trevor and I often do if you're new to the show. But the actual scouting phase of it is over, and nobody else I'd rather do it with you than you, man. It's been so many good conversations and back and forth and thoughts and projections, and now it all gets to play out. So that's the best part of it all.
I appreciate you, brother. Right back at you. You make this a lot of fun, as does everybody else out there. Man, people tweeting about, Bull Rush McIntyre and low moving costs and everything like during the draft, man. We love you guys so much. We'd be doing this anyways, but it's so much sweeter to have you guys rocking with us and covering the NFL draft and just getting to talk about draft all the time. Appreciate everybody watching and listening. As always, for Connor Rogers, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you so much for watching the NFL Stock Exchange show. We'll see you guys next time.